happening there, people? Kind of getting things started here. Got to get live space. I have to start up separately, so let me get that happening. Usually I do all this while my start screen is on. But I'm not doing that today because it's kind of a mellow kind of a deal. I'm just looking at all my different monitors here to see if I got the right stuff working. So bear with me for a moment, please. Thank you. I want to get everything in its proper order. Basically, getting all my chat windows set up takes a moment, which is kind of part of the deal when you are multi-streaming. You know, you got all your different crazy chat windows and things and stuff and junk. So I think I've got everything up and running now. So welcome to the stream, wherever you are out there. Thanks for coming in. I'm the Mad Poet. You are an audience. We are the Mad Poet Society. Not really doing a show today. Just going to jump into some composition software and write some music. Probably play a little guitar along the way. Because, guitars, baby. That was actually a riff from one of the songs I'm currently writing. Kind of jumped into my head there. That particular song is called Rain Over Nowhere. It's a tribute to a former mentor of mine. I've probably talked about it a few times. And that song is going to be 33 minutes, 33 seconds. I like putting those kind of restraints in place where, a song has got to be this long, or it's, got to have these elements in it. This has to be based around a piano or whatever it might be, is always a fun way to approach doing your music. Putting those kind of constraints on can be pretty beneficial. So just kind of doing all the stuff I would normally do behind the curtain of my start screen. And I think we got everything in order. So if you're tuning in from anywhere out there, welcome. Glad to have you. Let's see what we can do with this here. I'm going to switch over to my composition screen. There we go. This is my notation program. And this particular file I've got open here, this is just 4 albums worth of songs, just all this crazy amount of music that right there you're seeing just drums, and there's a bunch of stuff that's guitars and drums and bass, and there are some other instruments written. This is a very, very large file. And it's just, over the time when I'm not working on other things, I'll jump into Lonely Zombie. That's a fun song. Looking forward to recording a lot of. There's a few things in here where I use some different devices that I hadn't used before and some different ideas. I like to hopefully not write the exact same album every time. I know a lot of my music does have some substantial similarities, but I do write within my own style. So yeah, just a ton of music in this. So let's get back to where we were. That didn't work. What am I looking for here? What am I looking for? A lost glimpse of all that remains. I generally will put all of my song titles and everything into place first before I actually start putting anything. And then I'll put all my drums in. That's already been done. I don't generally work the drums here on stream because it's just so boring to compose. And that's, composing drums, obviously, it's the backbone of the foundational element of almost all music is the drums, the percussion, whatever that percussion might be, whether it's stomping of feet or clapping hands, drum set, hand drums, or whatever. Drummer buddy of mine, I asked him once, what's the difference between drums and percussion? I think I actually said, what's the difference between a drummer and a percussionist? And he said, a drummer plays the drums, a percussionist can hit anything and it'll sound good. And I really like that definition. That's a really solid way of looking at it. So I've got a key signature of B flat minor in here from an earlier song. Let's change that. And this, once I'm beyond writing drums, this is kind of the next step. Choose a key, and then you start putting information into your system. That's kind of it. That's a lot of times I'll just look here through here, and I'll just kind of like, B minor feels right. I don't know why. So I don't really commonly have any particular reason for why a song should be this or that. Sometimes I'll have an idea on the guitar first, and so it'll be like, well, whatever that key was in, that's where I will go. At this point, I don't know, I could change keys right in the middle of this if I am so inclined. Let's throw this in here. This basically shows anywhere it's dark or gray on this little lower window, that's where something has been written. So, for example, this one that turns blue along the bottom, that's, if it does it. Oh, program is, because it's a big file, it has trouble sometimes. So that's all the drums. So you can see this whole area here of, we've got about 8 songs in there that have not been written yet. You can see all the stuff that has been. It's basically, I think I got about 40 songs in this. And so yeah, very large file. 37 songs, something like that. But let's write this song today. A Lost Glimpse of All That Remains. I do occasionally get asked about, how do I come up with so many guitar riffs? And this is kind of, you can almost say that the bane of the existence of guitarists is, how do you come up with riffs, with good riffs, with any riffs, with great riffs, with mediocre riffs? Got my homemade mocha. It tastes awesome. Homemade mochas are so much better than the garbage you can get at the store. The coffee shops. They're the smaller coffee shops I like. The big ones I don't care for so much. But anyway, guitar riffs, how do you come up with a good guitar riff? And it's a great question. A lot of times, and certainly this is something that as a guitarist, you kind of want to have the skill to just, sit on your guitar and make up a guitar riff. So, if I'm making up a guitar riff on the guitar, so I've decided this is going to be in B minor. So the first thing I do is I visualize B minor on my fretboard. I just started a new student yesterday, gal that I've known for years. We were in the military together back in the early 90s. Great gal. And so she's just getting started with classical guitar. And so we just did her first lesson. And I said, here's the thing. The two most important things that a guitar player can know, and I've said this to other students before, the 2 most important things are your scales and how to name the notes of your fretboard. And I said, the 2 easiest things to learn on the guitar are your scales and the names of the notes on the fretboard. The 2 things that guitar players are least likely to know are the scales and the names of the notes on the fretboard. It's a very kind of vicious little pattern we've got. The reason, and this is the last part of it, the reason that so many guitar players don't know this very easy information is because 2 of the most boring things you can do on a guitar are scale patterns and learning the names of the notes. I am a freak, and I think that my guitar teacher Kevin would probably agree with this sentiment. And he's a great guy, and he just puts me to shame as a guitar player. But he's such a cool guy. I just think the world of Kevin. He would agree that I'm a bit of a freak this way, that I love playing scales. It's just, I can just sit and just play scales for hours and have the best time. And most people aren't like that. It's unfortunate, in my opinion, because it really, if you have that kind of freakish concept, you're just so far ahead of it. Teresa's in on YouTube. What's going on? Great to see you. I'm looking at the wrong camera way up there. Great to see you. I don't know if you have been in our streams. I've been streaming every day for about a week and a half now. Planning to stream daily until the end of March. And this is the first one of my first composition stream. I've been doing just basically 2 albums each day. I've been just streaming out. And the very first of those actually was... no, not the first one. Yes, the very first night I did Incomprehensible Isolation, which I actually dedicated a song to Teresa's mom on that album. And unfortunately, I believe she was out that night. I don't know if Clarissa has actually seen me perform her song yet, which is unfortunate. But yeah, there will be more performances of it, so I'll certainly let her know. But I hope you're doing well. We haven't talked for quite a while. I hope all is going nicely in your life. Things are going pretty well over here. And speaking of things going reasonably well, the pizza detox has ended. Our oven works again. And I was getting to the point with my pizza detox. There was, you live in a small town in Middle Eastern Washington. You don't just call up and order a pizza to be delivered to your house. There's no pizza joints in town. So it's either, if I wanted a pizza, it was either make your own or you drive out to like freaking Spokane, which is over an hour away, one way. So I felt like I was getting to the point where I was about to like start clutching a jar of tomato paste and curl up in a corner and start mumbling from the monkey on my back. So finally last night I made a pizza, man, and I got done with that pizza and I just like popped my head back. It was amazing. And then I had pizza for breakfast. So that's what's up. Good to see you. Anyway, so back to guitar riffs. How do we make a guitar riff? So if you're a freak like me, you know your scales and you know them well and you know all the names of the notes, like I just know, like I see B minor and I'm like, oh, okay, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G, A, B. That's just, this is good information to have. So if I'm going to write a riff in B minor, the first thing I do is I'll visualize B minor on my fretboard. And, I may not have any idea at all of what kind of a riff I actually wish to create. So then, if I'm doing this on the guitar, then I just, often you will center your riff around the tonic. The tonic would be the B note in this case, kind of whatever you call your scale. And there are ways you could retonicize these to be different things. So if I'm playing the exact same notes and I consider D like dog, to be my home bass position, then I would be in a D major scale. I rarely write in major keys because it's just not a very rock/metal kind of a thing to do. But, so yeah, I'll probably start on a B note. And the rhythmic concept involved here is going to be a very, very big deal. What is the rhythm that you're actually using? So a lot of times, just what my right hand kind of almost autopilot does might start to give an idea of what this riff's going to be about. So there, I got a little rhythmic idea. And this can be a great place to start with a riff. A lot of times we think more of, what chords am I going to play or what notes am I going to play? But if we can come up with a little riff. So there, we could say, okay, let's do that. So then if we transfer this into the sheet music, we kind of got to figure out what we're doing. So that's going to kind of be, and I think this might work well in this riff. Let me blow this up, embigorize this image, as it were. So put in a B note, and that defaults to a quarter note. So you gotta, and this, if you're going to use composition software, you really have to understand rhythmic devices, and you're going to have to be able to switch your values very readily and very accurately. And it's a really good idea to be able to copy things very quickly in notation programs as well. And knowing how to kind of repeat your notes and all that kind of thing. So that should be the basic idea that I just played on the guitar. Now my tempo is a little bit higher than I was playing at. That's fine. And tempo is also a big part of this. Another thing, I was actually talking with my new student about this again. The shows that I like to do the least are weddings. Playing weddings just sucks. And for a variety of reasons. But one of the advantages to playing a wedding, weddings, only one of the weddings I've probably played, 6, 7 weddings. Only one of them was not classical guitar. And that was just me on my red acoustic, just kind of doing background, poppy, jazzy kind of stuff. But with the classical guitar that we so often do, the music in classical, specifically in classical guitar, no matter how fast or slow you play it, it sounds great. And so a lot of times when I'm playing a wedding, I'll just take some of the really fast stuff that I play, and I'll play it like a quarter speed, and then it sounds all romantic and gooey and sappy and crap, and it sounds like I know what I'm doing for a wedding. There you go. So tempo absolutely makes a difference, but little difference in tempo from what I was doing there to what I've got here, not a big deal. And so then we can listen to this with the drum. This is one of the great things about these modern composition programs, is now we can listen with the drums. And so this is not going to sound like what it will sound like when I get my recording done, but we get an idea of what this ensemble is going to do. Okay, and now so like right here now we've got this idea in place, and a great starting point is to do a power chord on your 8th notes, and your 16th notes will be single notes. So now we get a little more robust image already. Kind of cool. Let's hear that with the drums. See now, yeah, okay, we're kind of getting something that could be kind of cool. This may be a completely workable idea. Now, for those like myself who use tablature, we can pop this right in here. And this particular program, Sibelius, it's really not made for guitars. I'm inclined to believe that the creators of this program probably frown upon guitar players and guitar, as particularly electric guitar, as being a secondary type of instrument. This is the sense I get when I've been on forums and have interacted briefly with developers of these kind of things. It's like, well, real musicians do classical, but one of the problems with that statement is that these programs are so often used by professional film scoring persons, film composers. And if you look at one of the absolute most stunningly brilliant soundtracks of all time, in my opinion, very likely the greatest film composer of all time, Ennio Morricone. He did a lot of the old spaghetti westerns, and particularly Once Upon a Time in the West. One of my favorite movies, one of my favorite soundtracks. There's electric guitar all over that thing. And a lot of people would agree that that is an absolutely stunningly well done piece of music. It's great, and it fits very well. So right there, that should be enough to say, yeah, there's a valid use for these instruments, even if you think punk rock is the worst thing in the world, which it isn't. The worst thing in the world is mushrooms. So now I've just transferred this over to put the bass in. And so this is, a very basic riff. There's nothing crazy going on here. But that's a good start. And we don't have to end here. So this is where, again, an understanding of scales can really help to lead to an understanding of how music theory works. And we got, I'm going to probably butcher your name. My apologies. Osuga Aimer? Osu Gamer probably is how that is pronounced. I could be wrong. Nonetheless, welcome to the stream. I don't recognize your username, so if you're new here, thanks for coming in. This is a little bit of a departure from my normal thing. I really enjoy doing these composition streams, and I love talking music theory. But it's a little more normal that we do kind of a rock show, and I've been doing that every day. So, feel free to keep coming by if you like what you see here and if you enjoy what we're doing today. But you see that the lights back behind me here, during the actual metal shows, we get those kicking around and we fill this room up with smoke, and I jump around and make a fool of myself, be kind of what I'm into doing. So nonetheless, well, and anyone out there, wherever you're coming in from, I'm streaming out to, I believe, 12 different websites today. It looks like Nono.tv and VK.com are not working for stream. I'll have to check into those a little more, but I don't think I ever get much traction on those, so not a huge deal. But yeah, wherever you're tuning in from, thank you very much for being here. I love doing this stuff. And if anyone has questions on any of the various websites, feel free. I believe the only website I will be unable to see the chat from would be Afrika TV. And Osu Gamer says, yeah, I'm new, just checking out Music Tag on Twitch. That's excellent. Great. There's a lot of really cool music that goes on Twitch. And my understanding is the original intent was to do things like this, show the process, but a lot of musicians have gone into performance, and I follow a bunch of music streamers on Twitch, and you get everything from very light ambient stuff to singer-songwriters to, like, my friend Holly Tatnell. She does some really sophisticated looping. I think Sally Wallach is live right now, and she does, kind of lighter pop-ish kind of stuff, covers and originals. And just a really mellow stream. And then you get people like me who are really kind of high energy, getting after it. So it's really all over the board, and just a lot of really cool people. I've found Twitch to be a very cool community. And yeah, Osu Gamer, I agree. It's a pretty awesome setup. So yeah, again, thank you very much for stopping in. I hope you enjoy Twitch. I've been on Twitch for a few years. I've never gained a lot of traction, but have definitely had a great time doing it. Okay, so back to music theory here. So as I said, when you start to understand how scales function, basically we can start to build, you might even think of like if the scale is the raw ingredients, you can start to build recipes for things. So if we take the first note, the third note, and the fifth note of a scale, that constitutes a chord. And for some people out there listening, if you know music theory, this may seem very, very basic to you, and that's totally okay. There might be other people out there who are, this could be completely new. If my friend Sharon, my new student, is tuning in, she'd be like, I don't know any of this yet, and that's great. So on these here, what we've created are known as power chords, and so basically we're just using the first note and the fifth note. But we can, just because the first, third, and fifth notes are a chord, doesn't mean that we have to use those exclusively. And so here, I'm kind of feeling a 6. So now a 6 has that kind of sound. And that adds just a little bit of character, a little bit of flavor, if you will, to this riff. And I could do that I basically copy pasted this over. These don't have to remain exactly the same. But this would add just a bit of flair to this riff. And let's listen to this inside the ensemble now. Now right there, as I talked about when I first started playing this on the guitar, and I should note here that I enjoy sheet music a lot. I have always found just the concept of sheet music to be very artistic. And in fact, on my wall that you cannot see because it's in front of me behind the camera, I've got a big mural of sheet music that I made. And some people from the very early days may remember that. I think that was showing in like my first half dozen shows, nearly 3 years ago or whatever. But yeah, I find sheet music very artistic and interesting to look at. So I tend to work in sheet music, but all of this can be done on an instrument. You could do this on a piano. You could do this on a guitar. You couldn't do it on, for example, a saxophone, because saxophones, trumpets, most horns do not play chords. I happen to enjoy sheet music, so that's good. So back to rhythmic concepts. So we've got and I just noticed Osu Gamer has given me a follow on Twitch. Thank you very much for following. Do appreciate that. Awesome sauce. Okay, so one of the things I feel right away is when I'm playing this is in this second measure, the rhythm should change a little bit. And it could be as simple as turning this into a quarter note. Now that may not really be a very present kind of a thing, but it can absolutely make a difference. Those little subtle changes in feel. I just noticed I got signed out of one of my websites. Let's pop that back on. That's the Live Space beta. And so yeah, that's an interesting site. It's really good. So this, like I said, these little subtle changes can do a lot. So this is going to be just slightly different now. And I like that better with that rhythmic device in place. But I also feel like we have this B minor, or be a B minor flat 6 no 3 chord would be the technical nomenclature for that. We can call it a B flat 6, not a B flat 6. Big difference there. And it's possible that I may have kind of cut off and come back on. If that's the case, my apologies. Hopefully everything is still running. Every once in a while it gets a little funky like that. So we've got this. Now I feel like basically from here to here, we're just looking at a B power chord. We don't even have a minor in there. So this is where it can be a great idea to kind of change this to a new chord. And we have to make sure that we also change the bass. And so now, by changing those in opposite directions like I did, what I essentially did was make the bass guitar be the 3 of that chord. So we have the 1. So this has a complete chord between these notes. And just that one little chord change could be significant. Absolutely. I'm digging that. That is working for me. And in this, I am a fidgeter. So when I'm doing this, don't know if you answered the question. I had to F5. Oh, sorry, I didn't see that. My apologies, Osu Gamer. What sites am I streaming at? That's a great question. Let me pop this up here. I'm streaming on Twitch, YouTube, Nemo, 2 different pages on Facebook, DLive, Trovo, LiveSpace, which is a beta program right now, Africa TV, Picardo, Vaughn, and actually it says I'm streaming on YouNow, but I'm not. That YouNow is kind of a weird thing, and it's not working correctly. I could actually turn that one off. So I do need to look into VK and Nono and find out why those aren't working. So this particular thing here, this is my multi-stream service. It's livepush.io. So yeah, I some of them I often don't have anyone watching on, and that's totally okay. Sometimes I'll have a whole bunch of people on DLive and nothing on Twitch, or one person on Twitch and 4 people on YouTube or whatever. It's kind of, and Nemo is kind of an interesting one. Hello out there to everyone on Nemo.com. I often get a lot of viewership on that. Not a lot of chatting, because that is a Vietnamese website, and so there's kind of a bit of a language barrier there, but I do appreciate people coming in from wherever they are at. So there, we got something like that. And so this is now, from what started out as just plucking a note on the guitar, has turned into a pretty cool riff. And I still don't feel like this is quite there for us. So we need to work this a little bit more. And so something in this area need to change. Now, here's something we can also look at is, as guitar players, or I should say, as an instrumentalist, we tend to concentrate on our own instrument, which makes perfect sense. I mean, I'm a guitar player at heart, so I think in guitar. And like a lot of my students, one in particular, Susan, who I've spoken about a few times, and she occasionally joins us in chat as well. She learned most of her information on a piano, and now she does a lot of composition work. She writes for mostly choral music. She writes for choirs, and she comes with some great stuff. She has to translate everything through her mental image of a piano. I have to translate everything through my mental image of a guitar. And, if you started playing with a saxophone or a euphonium or whatever, oftentimes that's going to be your kind of filter for how music theory works. And however any particular individual might think about this, that's totally fine. So a great thing you can do here is, right now my bass line is not very exciting. Right, so we can liven this up a bit, and we could say, let's maybe throw in some other information here. It's often reasonable to kind of start centering around your 1, 3, and 5. So basically, this is all just the 1. This is the B note. Where we go to this A chord, I've moved this to a C note. So if A is 1, then A, B, C, C is 3. And that's a really good way to do it. This is something I tell my students all the time. Just count the letters. We don't have to worry that it's a C sharp. We know it's a 3. Technically, this is a C sharp. So we have an A major chord here. And if you write what is called diatonically, which is all of the notes coincide with your scale, you're writing in key, then you will almost definitely have a variety of major and minor chords. I mean, you could use just the minor chords or just the major chords, but you may not have as many to choose from, because there are only 3 major chords and 3 minor chords in the scale, where you have a total of 7 notes. So you have 3 majors, 3 minors, and 1 diminished chord. And diminished chords are often substituted for a non-diminished chord, usually a minor, because that would be the easiest substitution to make. But we can start putting more information in, and this can really up the interest. Now, I don't know how well this all comes across over the internet with the various kinds of compression and things. But I could maybe put this on like a 3. And now all of a sudden we start to get a little more information going. Osu Gamer says, going to be watching without headphones for a bit. My headphones have to charge. Totally cool. Absolutely. You're always welcome to just kind of sit on the sidelines and watch or listen or whatever you want. I know there are streamers out there who are actually offended by the idea that people watch their streams but don't engage in chat. or watch their streams and mute the tab or mute the whatever or listen without headphones. It's like I'm not easy enough to offend to ever worry about stuff like that. If people are watching, that's great. And I hope that people enjoy my stream. And if my stream is the wrong stream, then go watch or listen to some of the other streamers, because there are a ton of them out there, and there are a lot of really good ones. But again, I appreciate you coming in, and feel free to stop in and ask questions or watch or listen at any time. So just, moving some of these around is great. And Stephen Paris, tuning in from Facebook, says he is offended that people don't use more diminished chords. Maybe we're going to have to put some diminished information in here just for my boy Stephen, just to cause him to be less offended. And Ozu Gamer says he loves, I said, I'm not sure who you are, that they love talking in chat. The main reason I watch Twitch is to talk to people. And that's great. That's absolutely great. And most streamers, of course, will be very happy to have people engaging in some way. And I always, I really like answering questions on any of this stuff. Getting me talking about music theory, getting me doing music is usually not a very difficult task. In fact, Stephen, who is offended by the lack of use of diminished chords, he is much the same. I know it doesn't take very much to get Stephen doing music. At the very slightest provocation, he will become a musical freak. So by doing this, we've put a third in, and then we've bumped this up to the fourth. Now that's not a primary chord tone, so this would kind of turn this into kind of like an add 11 chord. And these numbers don't all have to make perfect sense. And even here, like taking this one up to the 3, this could be very good, because that's going to give us a little more information about this chord. Since we've taken the 5th out and we've taken the 3rd out, we got the 1 and the 6. If you were to invert those, that would actually be a major chord. If we thought about this as a G and a B, it would be a G major chord. So I want it to be, so by putting the 3 of the B in, that actually kind of forces it to be a B minor chord. And so now we come up with some, without even changing the guitar, quite a bit more interesting. And a great example of how this kind of thing can work is that music forward. And so sometimes, even as a guitarist, it can be a really good idea to let your guitarist take a back seat to something else. Let it take a back seat to the keyboards, the string section, the vocalist, to the drums, to whatever. Sometimes you really want your drums to stand out. And that's why, a lot of times in my music, I will just go to, I'll maybe just hit an 8th note on the first beat of a measure, and then just let the drums just do some big crazy drum fill or whatever. And of course I'll program my lights to coincide with that, so it's all exciting and stuff. Okay, so changing this could do it. Now I generally write, as I said, I write my drums first. I write an entire album's worth of, or in this case 4 albums worth of drums. And then I'll put in my guitars and my bass. It used to be that I would exclusively do the bass line second and then the guitars. I've since gotten to where kind of what I'm doing here, just, kind of do those simultaneously. But, if you have an idea on something like this, like, ooh, what if the strings did this? Then that, jump straight into it. So here, we've used these thirds and this 4th. Now here, I'd bring this down to a 6, basically this note again, but multiple octaves lower. That's a 5th, and then this is the 6. And so that's going to kind of climb us back up. And in something like this, I could even kind of do this kind of walk right back up. So we're basically walking our way up to this C sharp, which is going to help solidify this A note. So that, in my opinion, and some people may hate this riff. Some people may listen to that and be like, what a stupid riff that is. That's okay. There is no right or wrong about what constitutes a good riff. And this is a really solid piece of advice, I think, that is worth giving consideration to as a composer of any kind of music, is what am I trying to accomplish? So for an analogy I've used with my students is, if you're going to learn to do archery, you should know where your target is prior to shooting an arrow, because you're much less likely to hit the wrong thing. The same kind of thing could be said in music, where if you know what kind of song you want to write, it's going to be easier to get there. So, and I don't have a particular goal in mind, but what I do know about this song is 136 beats a minute, and I'm starting with a double kick. So I know that this should be a high energy piece of music. So so I'm like, okay, I'm going for something high energy. A lost glimpse of all that remains. I'm not going to write lyrics for this. This is going to be an instrumental, which the vast majority of my music is. But you can maybe get an idea of, okay, a lost glimpse of all that remains. Okay, what does that feel like? And if I'm going high energy on that, so you can kind of just, off of what I've already got, you can get an idea of where you might want to go. Osu Gamer says, don't know if this is too far off topic, but how do you read tabs? I never really looked into it. My guess is the number is the fret and the line is a string. That is absolutely correct. I'm going to get to Steven's comment in just a moment. So that's the biggest thing on tabs, and this throws people off massively, is that it's very upside down in appearance. So the topmost line, so if I'm going to kind of isolate this out so we see more of just the tab here. So if we're looking at this tablature, the highest pitch string, which is physically closest to the floor, is string number 1. The lowest pitch string is string number 6. On the paper, it's upside down. The highest pitch string is the highest one on the page. Lowest pitch string is the lowest one on the page. So this would be telling you to put one of your fingers. It doesn't tell you which finger to use. It says put a finger on fret 2, string 5, and put another finger on fret 5, string 4. Now, in this case, your index finger and pinky, or fingers 1 and 4, would be your best choice. And then here it says, just play fret 2 on string 5, play fret 2 again, fret 2 again, fret 2 again, and now play frets 2 and 4 at the same time. And for that, you would probably use finger 3. And so if I kind of go in a little closer here, that's how that riff would work on a guitar. So finger 1 is what I would use here for fret 2, string 5, and that's what. So you're right. But the biggest thing to keep in mind is that this often feels upside down. So it's very common when I have students first learn to do this, they end up playing something upside down when they come back. It's like you're playing everything correctly, except it's upside down. And it's totally not a big deal. It's an easy thing to correct. But that part of tablature is quite counterintuitive. Once you start to understand kind of how music works a little more, this starts to make a little more sense. And so if you think about a piano, you don't move left and right on a piano. Your piano teacher would say, okay, move down with your left hand. So that would be moving to the left. Move up. So that would be moving, because it's on a horizontal plane. So you're not actually moving your hands up and down. You're moving left and right. But we refer to them. So in music, we're always referring to direction of pitch. That's a good way to think about it. And Stephen has, from Facebook, says that the 2-5-1 progression is the progression of unemployment. I think it might be reasonable to say, if you're not like Barry Manilow or Metallica level, all chord progressions are the progression of unemployment. Music is not, for most people, music is not a really big moneymaker. So don't forget about that if you're going for being a professional musician, which I am. And it's fortunate that Sarah makes a lot more money than I do. But I like it a lot. I have had a pretty darn good life, really. And, having released at this point 66 albums, I feel like that's a pretty solid accomplishment. Not very many people will get to that level. Okay, so this, we could probably call this riff done. And, where did I just go here? I'll point out here, right now, I'm just talking and waving my hands around a lot. So I generally do, if I'm not composing on stream, I compose a lot faster than this. This process, though very artistic and creative, a lot of it does become kind of autopilot. You just start kind of putting things in place. So when I'm explaining it, of course, I'm going to go a lot slower. So this is not a very fast way of writing music, getting online. Another concept to put in play here, as we started talking right at the beginning, is the rhythms really matter. So one important part of rhythmic devices is what you don't play. And this can be misunderstood. John Cage, the great John Cage, infamously wrote a song known as 4:33. The full title is 4 minutes 33 seconds of silence. And there are a variety of interpretations of what that song means, or whether it qualifies as a song or even qualifies as music. It's probably the most controversial piece of music ever written, which I think is awesome. And John Cage was brilliant in the way he approached so many things. When you listen to some of his music, you're like, this guy really knew what was going on with music. So when he did something crazy like 4:33, there was probably a reason for it. So one of the things that's really good is to put in some rests. And then, because your precious friend Steven's offended that you didn't do it yet, you also put in some diminished chords. There you go, buddy. A C sharp diminished chord. Just for Mr. Steven. And I think what I might... Now, a lot of times... So in a minor key, the chord that would be created on your second note, so in this case that would be a C sharp note, that would be a diminished chord. And it's very common to modify the fifth note of that chord, so that it is not diminished. And this kind of a device right here, where I'll use the correct chord and then I'll put in my substitution chord, this can be really good because your diminished concept tends to lead very well to resolution. A lot of times the word that's used for a diminished chord is words like discordant. What's the other word I'm trying to think of here? We'll go with discordant. A not consonant sound. A really good way to think of diminished chords is restless. It's not at rest. And when a chord is not at rest, it wants to go somewhere else. Oh, and I'm back. I need to get back to the sheet music here. So there's our diminished chords. I forgot that it was just my lovely face on the screen. So when we take a diminished chord or a restless chord, and then we let it go to something that feels more at rest, it often leads to a very nice resolution. And I think what I'm going to do in this case is I'm going to sub out this chord in a slightly different way. So this is going to be 2 notes out of our key. Let's see how this works. Put our bass line in here. And so this is kind of interesting. So what I've done here is I've taken this and I've moved it into this chord. Let me get this in the right place. So both of these notes are out of key, and this would be an inversion of a major dyad. And so this could be a very restful chord. And this is another thing that's worth noting if you're getting into music theory, is just because it's a major chord or an inversion, or in this case you could interpret it as a minor 6, or however you look at it, you can think, well, a major dyad could be very restful. But because I'm putting this major dyad in an out of key context, it could also serve a more restless function. And so if I were now to take this up to, let me get this in the right place, something like this. Is that going to move for me? No, I need that. No, I don't need that. Oh, I see what. What am I trying to accomplish here? Okay, I'm on an A. I need this to be. There we go. So now I'm kind of using something that could be a chord at rest, using it in a slightly restless way, and then bringing this back. And you know what? I actually want this to be. No, okay. Let's see where I'm going wrong here. That should be that, and this should be here. That's what we're looking for. And then I'm going to pull this in and just finish up some 16th notes here. Now, it's also notable, when we started this, I started talking about, like, how are you going to make a riff if it's just on a guitar? And, so we basically sat there, we did a little rhythmic device, and we started to create a riff off of that, put it in sheet music and modified it. That's completely viable. But at the same time, sometimes you just sit there and put it in sheet music. And that's most of how I do what I do, is I just throw it into sheet music. And then here's something, and this can be a very difficult aspect of any kind of artistic creation. It can be very difficult to say, is that what I want? And give yourself an honest answer. It's really easy to become emotionally attached to what you've created. And sometimes that's not a good thing. And I've seen this, I've seen it in myself, I've seen it in a lot of students, I've seen it in other musicians, where we create this riff and we're like, okay, I need to keep this because it's mine. I did this. Being able to let go of that is huge. So what I want to be able to do now is listen to this in place and answer the question, do I like this? And the answer is no, I don't. I like the first 2 measures. I do not like this measure. And here's the solution to this. And this can be a very difficult thing to do. You take the work you did, you delete it, and you save your file. And you don't look back. Being able to do that is huge. And a question that has been presented to me by a variety of people is, how do you become comfortable in a recording studio? Clearly, having recorded and released 66 solo albums, I'm pretty comfortable recording music. And again, most people don't like the answer, because it's similar to the answer of, how do you become a better guitar player? The answer you will not like. You have to practice, and you have to practice every day. That's just it. That is the correct answer. So if you want to become comfortable in a recording studio, what I tell people is, and we back up a little bit, we're in a great position for having the capacity to do this, because you can have a really good recording setup for very inexpensive. Just a basic interface you can get for $80 to $150, and it will absolutely work. And some people may say that the preamps aren't as good as if you get a UAD system for, or a Motu or whatever. And while there's truth to that, the preamps in the low end of the kind of what we call the prosumer products are much better than the preamps that were in studios back in the 80s and 90s. And there was a lot of great music put out. So you don't have to have the highest end stuff. So you can set yourself up with a basic recording setup, and it could be headphones, it could be monitors or whatever. For fairly little money, you can have a very nice setup. And the monitors I'm using, I've had for, 15, 18 years, and they still work great. I don't need to upgrade. I don't need to have the best thing to be able to do reasonably good music, reasonably good production. So I say, right in your home, what you want to do is write a small piece of music. Something maybe only like 30 seconds long, or something. It could be a part of a song, or an intro to an album or something that you would actually want to record. And you take that and you record it. And then before you listen to it, delete it. You're not even you do the recording, and you just delete it. And now if you're something like me, you might set up some drums with it or something, set up some other MIDI instruments. But you do the recording, and without even listening to what you're recording, you delete it. And then you do that at least 50 times. 50. That's not a joke. Record it 50 times. Delete every single one. Don't even listen to it. And then on your 51st time, or it might be your 60th time or whatever, so somewhere past 50 times, you record it and then you listen to it. And even if that is the most perfect take you can imagine, you delete it. And you do that 50 times. Record, listen, delete. Get rid of it. And this is going to do a couple of things for you. One, it's going to make you understand it's okay to do it over. We're not wasting tape. You don't got to go out and buy, 2-inch 16-track tape, which you do not want to pay for. I priced out some analog tape a couple years ago, and I'm like, oh, dude, this stuff is so expensive these days. I actually purchased analog tape for my very first album that I recorded up at Riverside Studios in Granite Falls, Washington. And we never actually used it. It was kind of right. This was in the early 2000s, right on the cusp of the digital age really coming into its own. So I bought the tape, and we never actually used it. We did everything digital, and I was fine with that. I mean, I'm not a purist of any kind when it comes to that. And to my knowledge, that tape is still sitting up at Riverside. I was just talking with Dave a few days ago. I'll need to ask about that next time I talk to him. He's kind of getting that studio up and running again, so we've been talking microphones and stuff. And another very cool guy. I've been fortunate to work with some very awesome people in the music arena. So you don't got to do that. You're not wasting tape. You're not wearing out your computer by doing this. So recording something and deleting it 100 times doesn't hurt anything. So one, you get comfortable saying, okay, if that take's not good enough, no big deal. I can do it over. And another thing that starts to happen is you start to realize that the record button being on isn't the big deal it feels like when you first put it on. So oftentimes, our first experiences in a recording scenario, not necessarily in a recording studio, but a recording scenario, it's very nerve-wracking. You get hit with all this adrenaline, and you're amped up, and you need to relax to play your guitar or to sing your part, and you can't relax. Your shoulders are all tense, and this is really good for singing, isn't it? This is great to have my hands clenched up like a vice grip, so playing guitar. So you're able to relax a lot more after you've basically given yourself the experience of having recorded 100 times. But since it's only like a 20 or 30 second long piece, this might only take you a few weeks or maybe a couple of months. It might only take you a few days, depending on what kind of time frame you're working in and what kind of environment you're working in. And so having that ability, getting yourself accustomed to saying, that's not good enough, I'm just going to get rid of it. That's massive. And, on my second album through my 50th album, all of the lead guitar recordings were done in front of a camera. And I stopped doing that because I started to feel that there were things I wanted to do with my albums that I was unable to do when I had to play consistently. Because what I would do on those is there was never a break in the camera. The only exception to that was on my Asemic Writings albums, which are a single song that's 52 minutes long. My camera wouldn't actually record that long. It would only record for 30 minutes, so I'd have to write a place in for a camera change. So I would change guitar in the middle of the song. But all of those shorter songs, even Faded Age, which is 20 minutes long, one take. There's not a break in the camera on that. And I recorded that one, I think I recorded that like 3 or 4 times, because the first couple times I'd get like 17 minutes in and I would totally hack something up. It's like, okay, start over at minute 0 and go again. And so, clearly there's some limitations to working with that kind of a concept. Very, very strong learning period for me in doing that, because when you have to do a 20-minute take, you better be ready for it, And I think that the longest actual continuous take was on Asemic Writings 2, where I had one section where I had to go for, I believe it was 28 minutes in a single take. And fortunately, there was one part in that there was kind of a rhythm guitar part. And that I think I screwed that up 5 or 6 times. Fortunately, it was only about 3 minutes deep in that take. So I knew that I was going to get that wrong right away. Yes, I think I did 3, 4, maybe 5 takes on that before I got that. So that's the longest continuous take I did. But even on a 6-minute song, 4-minute song, if you got to go straight through. So these days, I don't punch in, but I will say, there's a solo part here, so I'll just record that solo, and then I'll record this solo. So it's a little more segmented as I do that. But still, I will record, even if it's a 30-second solo, a 2-minute solo, or whatever, I'll record that, and I'll know right away. That's just delete. I've got a 3-minute solo, 2-minute solo. I'm 5 seconds from the end, I don't like the note I just played, I'll just delete it and do it over. And I often won't even listen back to it, because I'm like, I know that I don't like that note I just played. So start over. Now, of course, when I'm live, I don't have that option. And so, yesterday I don't think I did a terribly competent performance. It wasn't terrible, but I was having some tech things go on that I wasn't quite ready for. And that seeps into your brain as you're doing things. And I don't think it was great. So there's some sour notes in there, and some people won't notice those, some people will. I certainly did, but there's no way to go and do them over. So that's another thing, you get comfortable with. The more you just play, the more you perform, the more you record, the more you get comfortable with, hey, you know what, sometimes I'm going to hit a sour note, and it's going to be, or a sour chord. Or sometimes, I think it was 3 or 4 days ago, I was doing a show, and when I perform, I'm not plugged in with a cable, I have a wireless. Right in the middle of the song, my batteries go dead. Well, whose fault is that? That's my fault. because I'm the only person here. I'm responsible for the lights, for the batteries, for everything, the smoke machine, for the recording program, the sheet music program, for everything. And, and there's a meter here that shows me how much battery I got left, and I wasn't paying close enough attention. So right in the middle of the song, I got to pull my thing out, switch the batteries, pop it back in, turn it back on, and start going again. It's going to be pretty obvious to anyone watching that I screwed up right there. So, yeah, get used to those things and become comfortable with it. And just like I said, learning how to delete your own work, I think that is a really big part of building the confidence to allow yourself to do these things. So now, I've gotten here, and my basic idea here, looking at this page, is when I look at kind of what I got going on with the drums through this, I have 16 measures, and it is 8 measures that are then repeated. So these 8 measures are going to happen twice. So what I want to do here is, this is a pretty fast-paced little thing. So I'm going to write the 2 more, and then I'm going to, now here where the drums just completely change, this can be a really good feel. Just keep that same idea going. And I'm going to actually bump up the volume of the drums here a bit so those come through a bit more clearly. So here it is here. And then here. So knowing that I'm going to do that, I felt like the kind of punctuated thing that I was doing here with those 8th note chords and then an 8th note rest didn't really work so well. So I start over, do something different. So I'm still going to put this onto an 8th note, or to a C sharp diminished chord. But now what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep this more kind of 16th note groove going. And again, I might do this. I might write 4 or 5, 20 ideas in a row and delete every single one of them. And I've had days like that where I sit down and I'm just like, compose, delete, compose, delete, compose, delete, compose, delete. Okay, cool. Sometimes you just got to compose and delete a bunch of stuff. So the idea I've got right now is I'm going to fill up this here, and I'm going to take these notes and I'm going to move them around a little bit. And so this is basically the beginning of the beat here. So that's on the 3rd and 4th beats there. And so this will look like this. And I feel like this might kind of keep that quicker pace that we've got happening. It'll keep that going a little bit. Let's listen to that in place. That is better. And so this is a great example of why you want to be able to delete your work. Because if you can't delete your work, you don't get to this thing that actually works better. And so, and there have been only a couple of times that I have written an album, and generally my albums come out to around 52 to 55 minutes. Some longer, some shorter. My shortest album is 44 minutes, 22 seconds, and my longest album, that's my 13th album, is a bit shy of 74 minutes. So sometimes, I'll get into the recording program and I'll listen to a song and I'll be like, this song just either has to be rewritten or deleted. The entire song. And, unfortunately, if you can delete a riff, you can probably delete a song. If you can delete a song, you can definitely delete a riff. So this kind of works a little bit better, in my opinion. I like this more. And this might be a place, again, to fiddle with your bass instrument a little bit and say, okay, so here I've got this diminished chord. So this, again, could be a good place to put in a 3, because that's going to really solidify the diminished concept, because you've got a minor third between 1 and 3, a minor third between 3 and 5. This is just like the most totally normal stuff that anyone's ever talked about on Twitch. I mean, everyone just thinks like this, right? Yeah, absolutely. And again, I'm not sure how well that bass is coming through. So right now, these, even though this is moving around, this is just following this. So this might be something where I'm on the 1. Take that down to the 5. So this is on the 1 of this note, that is. So there's often this concept of 1 of, which can get a little confusing in music theory. And if you're not following this perfectly, that's okay. I might take this one down to the 3. Yeah, that adds a little interest into what we got going on there. Very cool. And now I feel like just kind of there's a term which is audiation. And it's just the ability to hear music in your head. So whenever you've got a jingle or your favorite song or your least favorite song stuck in your head, and you're like, God, I wish I could get this song out of my head. That is audiation. You're just hearing something mentally. It's a psychoacoustic effect. And so when you compose music, often you will kind of audiate what's happening next. And that's even true if I am improvising along. I will kind of hear where I want to go before I actually go there. And, I might hear a basic idea like, hey, maybe I'm just going to move to a higher position. I didn't hear every note as in the audiation process, but I, just kind of heard that I wanted to go higher. Or maybe you'll hear like a big jump where you're like, and so that can kind of guide where you're going to go. And I've said before, and this I think is a great statement, improvisation is very fast composition. You're composing in real time. And generally speaking, you're not attempting to remember it. Obviously, that stuff I just improvised did not get written down. I could hypothetically go back, listen to this recording, because these will be saved on YouTube and Twitch. And a couple of the other sites save the playback video. So I could go back and I could figure out note for note what I did, put it in sheet music if I wanted to. I don't want to, and I'm not going to. So you can do that, but here when it's so improvisation is composition in real time. Composition is just really slow improvisation because really the only guiding principle here is my imagination. I mean, you get the guiding principles of music theory, scales, all of that kind of stuff. As we saw with my first idea on this, you don't have to only use the notes in the scale, and sometimes that's very effective. In this case, so far, I am diatonic. I am writing in key. And just for Stephen Paris, I put in the 2 and left it as a diminished chord, where sometimes I would put that in as not a diminished chord. But the reason I bring up audiation is what I hear next is moving down below this B note. So maybe to an A note, even a G note, something like that. And I think what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to leave this as the C note. I'm going to hit that diminished chord again, and I'm going to use that to, actually I want that to be an 8th note. Put that chord in. Actually, this might work better as quarter notes. Here we go. Oh, I'm getting myself thrown off here. Excuse me. And I think now, earlier I said, it can be good to kind of punctuate things. And I think I meant to take that down to a G note, so let's do that. think now I'm going to take this to 16th notes. And here, really, a lot of this, I'm just kind of playing around rhythmically. I'm going to turn that into an 8th note. So there is going to be a little pause here right before this thing starts back up. So let's listen to this. And this kind of gives a sense of how it moves into the next part. I like the pause here a lot. I don't know if I want these notes. So another question you could kind of ask yourself is, what is the function of this position in the scale? What is the function of this note or this chord? Or you can say, if I want to go to this other position, what can functionally get me there? So often the 5th of a target can help you get there very effectively. So what I might look at is, instead of having this on an A and going to a B, if I were to take this down to an F sharp, which is inherent in our scale, and I can actually leave the bass on the A, because that is now going to be the 3 of the F sharp. So we've got this chord in place. This might actually bring us back to that B chord a little bit better. I should say B minor chord. I'm not entirely digging something in the F sharp is good. In this case, the power chord might be what I'm not liking too much. That's exactly it, yes. And in fact, if this were not a power chord, this might work, because technically you could kind of think of this diminished chord as a power chord because it is a 1 and a 5, but it's this diminished feel, so it doesn't have the power chord. The thing that makes the power chord work so well is the relationship between the two notes. So for example, if I play an A note here, this vibrates 220 times per second. Its 5th, an E, vibrates at 330 times per second. So the math on this is very easy. It's a 2 to 3 ratio. Every 2 times this vibrates 3 times. This is actually the most consonant chord you can have that doesn't just contain itself. So I could have a 1 to 2 ratio by playing an A and another A. But now you're only playing one note. You're playing it in 2 different octaves, but it's so consonant because it's just one thing. So the power chord has this very, very strong consonance. To the point that when analyzing music, you can often, particularly analyzing rock music, you can just think of the 5th as adding a stronger foundation to the root note. The diminished chord is the second most dissonant interval that we have in the 12-tone system, the most dissonant being the minor second. And mathematically, that is a little more dissonant based on the ratio, and I don't remember the exact numbers, but they're freaky ratios. So you're not getting the power chord concept with this. So again, you kind of technically think of it as 1, but it's better just to think of it as a diminished 5th. But now we basically have no power chords in this measure at all. And particularly what I would say listen for in this case is listen to let me actually put this into here. So now we've completed this 8 measure segment. And so, the real feel that changes now is the drums. The one thing I do notice as I listen to this is the second time I play this, this needs to change. Oh, and now I've totally left this on my camera the whole time. Apologies again. Let me put all of this back up here. So here's the sheet music now. I need to remember to, I haven't done a composition stream in like 6 months, so I'm a little off my game. My apologies. So that's the music that we wrote. And so I'm going to rewrite this. And what I'm going to do here, this is a little trick that I like. Pull this. I'm going to go into just some 16th notes. I'm going to put a longer pause at the end of this as it goes back into the 16th notes in the drum. No, I actually want the pause to occur here. I want to do a half note pause. So I should probably move this still on the F sharp might work well. So put that into the bass. Now something like this, I often really like to play around with the bass. And so maybe put this on the 5. So this is the 1. Put that on the 3. Leave that on its own 1. I put this down too low. That one to an E. Actually, that might work out all right, because then I would have a plagal resolution on the way back. So the 5 to the 1 is a very strong resolution, and that's known as a perfect resolution or a perfect cadence. Plagal cadence or plagal resolution is a 4 to 1 move, and they're both a very strong sense of resolution, but they resolve in very different ways. And so this might work nicely. And basically all I'm doing here with the bass by fiddling around with where that is. Oh, okay, I'll have to change that. Is I'm just playing with different aspects of the chord. And so I've got the 3 and 1 here. So this is a 1, this is a 3. So that's a 1 and a 5. This is a 1 and a 3. And then these here are a 1 and a 1. And I'm also going to turn, a lot of times at this kind of a tempo, a bass doing 16th notes, it just kind of muddies up the works. So I'll often leave these on 8th notes. And here also with guitar, I not uncommonly have a preference toward staying away from open strings in something like this. And whether you use an open string or not is very much of a personal preference. There are plenty of places that I do go for the open string, plenty of places that I don't. So, and something like this also, having something be a direct repeat every single time isn't always great. So just like, having, we basically have a 4-measure riff here. So I have resolution 1, resolution 2. And technically the resolution is on the first beat of the next measure. So this leads me to the resolution. So let's actually put this in place. And because this will, and I could completely rewrite something different for, the next 8 measures. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. But let's kind of see how this feels here. Save that file again. I like to save my files often, because I have lost way too information in the past by not saving often. And I like to drink my mocha because mochas are awesome. Okay, let's take a listen to this. I like to change the pace there. Yeah. Yeah, and this is a good example. Something I mentioned earlier is that sometimes you want your guitar to not be the shining object, right? You want something else to fill in. So here, like this, all we get suddenly right here is just this little drum fill that just brings that out and brings us into this with the drums. The guitars don't have to be there. Very, very good in that. I like that. And now here, this is another thing too. I said, we've got our last measure here, and then we change it here. This could be good in this case because my drums are doing the exact same thing. It could be good for me to come in here and actually change this up a bit, add in a little bit more drum information, just doing something like this. And that's going to make it so those two measures aren't exactly the same. And then instead of, maybe having these be here, take these up so they're on some of the higher toms, like that. So now our endings are just going to sound slightly different. And that moves into the A section of the song. And my section names don't really mean anything. They're just so that I can identify where repetition should occur. And that works well. And I do save this a lot. I don't announce every time I'm saving it. But that is definitely a key thing. You should definitely save your work an awful lot. The first album I did, Confusion, as I mentioned, up at Riverside Studios. One night I was working in there. It was just me. And I'd put in about 4 hours of work. Things were going. I was working on a song called Mental Floss. It's the closing track from my first album. I really like that piece. I mean, I like my first album still a lot. I enjoy listening to that album. 4 hours, just up there, pounding away. Power goes out. How many times have I saved that file? Oh, that's right. 0. Lost 4 hours of work in one fell swoop. 100% my fault. No one else gets it. No one else even is welcome to take the blame for that. That was all me. And so I, cussed a little bit, brought the studio back online, and started over. Only took about 2 hours, 2.5 hours the next time because I knew what I was hoping to accomplish. I had a much better idea where to go, but that was kind of painful. Lesson learned, baby. And so now the way my music works here is you see these, I've got my intro section, my A section, B section, I'll have breaks and stuff. And like I said, those are just for my own information. So now I can take this intro and I can say, oh, well, there's the intro section again. So boom, pop that in there. And then let's see, my intro comes up again at the end. And then this is something I'll often do is I've marked this intro with this asterisk, which is to say something is different. And it looks like what I've done is I've added a little bit. So I've added the first 4 measures onto it again. So I'll just copy that in there. Oh, I should have actually copied 4 measures instead of just 3. And then here's where it's kind of like a lot of times my songs do end very abruptly, which I know really appeals to some people. Other people don't care for that. A lot of times there's not a lot of kind of advertising the fact that we're coming up on the end of this. But this time I feel like maybe if I were to take this and start to do like some big crazy fill back here, so make these some toms here, and maybe pop in a couple of snare hits there, and a snare hit there. Make these some tom hits. Bring those up to the higher toms. Snare drum here. Couple of snares here. Maybe actually keep these on the kick drum as well. And this is, you know, a lot of people are very against the concept of programmed drums. I am not a drummer. I have never purported to be a drummer. I use programmed drums in my albums, and I feel no shame in that. One thing I've often said, and again, this is something that some people will really not like, but they're not going to like it because it really kind of hits home. The reason that so many people have moved to using programmed drums is because so many drummers are incapable of showing up. The majority of musicians, I have been trying to get a collaboration going for any of my albums for a few years now, and I've talked to a few different guitar players. What I want to do is just have someone else just contribute a guitar solo. I'm going to write the song. I'm going to do everything. And there was one lady that I was really hopeful with, and we'd gotten to the point that I'd written the song. I'd sent her the information. I was gonna all this person would have to do is just record, and then suddenly just a complete lack of communication. And I'm like, well, that's kind of a bummer. So yeah, and this happens all the time. So drummers, so often you hear drummers putting forth the complaint of, why are you using programmed drums instead of a drummer? I'm like, well, because once I have taught my programmed drummer how to play, it does it right. And I don't got to wait for it to show up. It doesn't show up drunk. It doesn't show up high. It doesn't show up late. I press go and it plays the drums right. And so drummers could put drum programmers, like the Superior Drummer and Steven Slate Drums. Drummers could put those companies out of business overnight by showing up. If drummers always showed up, most people would prefer to use them. Unfortunately, it doesn't happen too often. So like I said, sometimes my songs end very abruptly, and sometimes I like to let it ring out. I'm kind of feeling the whole ringing out thing on this one. So get my B note in there. And so it's kind of a decision. I think I'm going to do, I did the same basic ending on Fistful of Light. A lot of my songs, Fistful of Light really sticks out to me, where I just let it ring for one full measure, and it's just, that guitar and bass ringing out and the cymbal, really. Sometimes I'll let it just ring out until it fades out. I think in this one I'm going to let it ring out and just kind of ring out for a measure. But this, I feel like, if we listen to this last bit, this big drum fill now is really going to kind of advertise that something is coming to an end. Not sure about the minor dyad at the end, and I may fiddle around with this fill. I think this needs a few more snare drum hits. I think this one should be a snare and a kick. That'll probably help it a little bit right there, actually. And this, in fact, I think if I were to throw in some more cymbals on this one, that'll help it out a little bit. And I think actually on this one, I should just go to the abrupt end. Let's try that. I'm not digging that either. I'm not sure how to end this one. I'm going to have to give this some thought. What if I do the full-on ring out? Let's try that, see if we like that a little better. I think I see what the problem is. I have ended it on the 2. I misinterpreted where I had actually put the information. This should be on a B instead of a C sharp. That might make more sense. Yes, okay, yes. It just sounded so irresolute. And as I mentioned earlier when we kind of first got going, your kind of the letter that you call your scale by, that's your home base, it's your foundation. We refer to it as the tonic. And it's often a very good place to start and stop your music. By no means do you have to start there, by no means do you have to stop there. But in this case, if you want a good sense of resolution, your root or your tonic is a really good place to do it. Now, a great example of where I went away from this, and I feel it worked quite well, on my last album, which I just put out last Saturday, the 4th song is in G sharp minor. The song is called Barfing Blood from My Eyes, because I'm just a happy little guy like that. And so that's in G sharp minor. And I actually resolved the very last chord on the song is an A minor dyad. So once so this is like a flatted 2. And it's not even quite the flatted 2, because the flatted 2, if we just flatted the 2, we'd end up with a major chord. So I've also flatted the 3 of the chord, or the 4 of the scale. And like I said, with a name like Barfing Blood from My Eyes, you don't necessarily expect a real happy resolution going on. So, once we've established G sharp minor, and that's how I ended the song. So, to me, that works really well for the concept of that song. It's a real upbeat, kind of fast-paced piece. So yeah, sometimes you want to be just way off. It's not just that I didn't resolve to my tonic, is I didn't even resolve to notes that are in the scale. So it's clearly going to be rather abrasive, and that's what I wanted. So if you want that kind of a feel, that's one of the ways you can potentially get it. Of course, if you want a more, if I'm in that G minor and I've established that, and I just end on a G sharp minor, well, then great. I'm in G sharp minor. We've established G sharp minor. I end on the tonic, solid. Sometimes you don't want to be solid. Sometimes you just want to drink some mocha. Or sometimes you want to drink a latte or a glass of water, which I also have. Drink my water, drink my mocha, just do my thing. Boom. So yeah, composition. I love composition. Just, the whole idea of just, how we do it. And here again, so when I look at this, so we've got the intro, which we've just created, and then we have an A section, a B section, a break, and a second break. So here's the break area, and here's the second break area. And so, I might write these completely out of order. I started with the intro. I didn't have to. I don't always start with the intro. But I think I might jump up here and write this kind of second break here. And, it's interesting doing this because I don't even know what, I've got an idea of what the song feels like, at least at the intro, but oftentimes once I get past my intro, I will significantly change the feel of the music. I don't know where this is going to go yet. I don't know what the A section is going to sound like. I don't know what the B section is going to sound like. Maybe we should do this. Let's jump into this. And I don't really feel myself changing keys in this song, the way, at least right now, the way I'm sensing the direction of it. I don't feel that happening. Ike Keldon, thank you very much for the follow. Welcome to the Mad Poet Society. If you're new to what we're doing here, this is I'm doing a composition stream today. We're just kind of creating some music. Most often I do more concert style performance. And I've released 66 heavy metal albums, all instrumental, and one EP that does have vocals on it. So generally speaking, I'm kind of more jumping around like a monkey out here, energetic little Randolph, the mad poet style. KR. Oh, super cool. KR is so awesome. And shout out to KR Acoustic. For anyone he's a singer-songwriter type and a lot of covers. He's got some really great originals and just a super cool guy. Very mellow dude. Believe he's out of Canada. And I started watching him a couple years ago and I just always really liked his style. Very nice guy, so I will definitely have to thank him for the referral. Very, very awesome. Do you stream yourself? Are you a streamer? Do you play, or what? What's your? Excuse me. This is my new choking hobby. I'm getting really good at it. Nope. Oh, cool. That's awesome. Just chilling. I like it. Absolutely. And this is, you might even just be able to tell just from my tone of voice, I'm generally a fairly high energy person. But this is about as chill as my streams generally get. And of course, even when I am jumping around like a monkey, it's always great to, just chill and watch me be the crazy one. So anyway, we're writing this song in... What is this song called? I don't even remember. I've got so many freaking song titles, I can't keep them straight. A Lost Glimpse of All That Remains. And so we've written the intro to it, and we're just kind of looking at this little break section here. I'm actually going to change the view of this sheet music so I can get this all into view. And so, here, one of the things I look at when I'm composing like this is, clearly we've got this very fast upbeat thing going on the intro. And of course, at this part, the intro is repeating. Technically, this would be the outro now, but it's the same music, so I just refer to it as the intro. So right before this, on this break section, obviously I've slowed the drums way down. So this is a great place to ask yourself the question, what am I going to do with the rest of the music? Do I want the rest of the music to get slow? Do I want the rest of the music to stay really fast? Or maybe I want to go to, some other kind of a pace here. One thing that can be very effective in an area like this, particularly where I'm going to be bumping back up to something really fast, and I'm already kind of doing this thing where, the drums here are 16th notes and they move to quarter notes. And so I'm going from fast to slow, from fast to fast in the guitars, but it changes the feel significantly. Same exact riffs, but changes the feel. So sometimes it's really nice to have a change of instrumentation in an area like this. And now, even if I'm only using the basic rock ensemble, which I often don't, I will often back this stuff up with some sort of a string section, synthesizer, possibly a piano or a harpsichord. Those are some of my more common ones. Pipe organ is one I really enjoy using. But even if I'm just using the rock ensemble elements, which is drum, bass, and guitars, you can still really change the feel of something by concentrating around a new instrument. So as a guitarist, I often am looking at the guitars. And J10B2, JLob2. Apologies for butchering your username. Thank you very much for the follow. This is awesome. I'm getting a lot of traffic today. This is great. One of the things I've been doing, I really like to take responsibility for my own actions. And historically, for the last about 2.5 years, I've only streamed on Friday nights, or almost only on Friday nights, and about 8:00 p.m. in the Pacific time zone, which is pretty unfavorable for everywhere else in the world, because most people at that point, if you're New York, or in the East Coast of Canada or the U.S., or if you're in Europe, you're probably out partying or you're going to bed. So I've been streaming every day in the afternoon time over here in the on the West Coast, and it looks like it's been good. So today, I got 3 new followers today. I really appreciate that. So thank you guys very much for coming in, and I hope you enjoy this. But like I said, this is not my most standard thing. I do enjoy doing the composition streams, but more often I will be doing more rock concert style. A little higher. So anyway, so the reason that we would do something like changing the instrumentation is it's a good way to change your kind of sense of movement in music. So one of the things I'm thinking right here is putting this into being more bass-centric. So I'm going to start out with just some straight eighth notes here. And in doing this, what I'll probably want to do is punctuate this with the guitar. So I'll put a guitar chord here, and then I will just kind of punctuate this bass occasionally with the guitar. So if we just listen to what we got here, and as I'm playing this, there might be like a really slow kind of bendy guitar solo going on over this. Let me give myself a small lead in. So I might do something like, something kind of like that. And so suddenly it's going to be this very distinct change in feel from what's going on. And that kind of ebb and flow, letting your music kind of wax and wane a little bit, is very beneficial. So often in a lot of metal, we don't think about how to change the feel. So it's just kind of like high energy all the way through. And there's nothing wrong with that. And I've got plenty of songs that are just, a very similar energy all the way through. Like In the Presence of the Dawn, which I played in my show yesterday. That's a very mellow thing all the way through. It's just kind of me with a clean tone, just doing really mellow all the way through. It doesn't have much of a change. Over the course of the album, that feels pretty good. It's right before the final song where it kind of bumps back up. Oftentimes I do like to do this within just a single song, even if it's like this song's not particularly long. Of course, in the Asemic Writings series, those songs are 52 minutes, 25 seconds long. And so there, I'm going to be changing all kinds of stuff. I mean, it's going to go all over the place in one song. But in here, bumping this down like this, and in my opinion, by keeping these straight eighth notes going, that gives this kind of feel of something's coming up. Like you can almost kind of think about like in the background music for an action film. When you hear something just going, it's like, oh man, something's about to happen. Something's about to happen here. Something's going on. And that's just rhythmic doing that. And then this very simple rhythm can really do a lot for you in that kind of a sense. And then here, something I have yet to do in this particular song, and which some songs don't have this at all, some songs have a lot of it, is a bit of syncopation. And for persons who may not be familiar with the concept of syncopation, syncopation is when you accent something other than your primary beat. And so here, our syncopation, I got the wrong keys hit, there we go. Our syncopation here, if we were counting these eighth notes, my save is taking a second here. Good time to get a drink of my mocha. So if we're thinking of these as eighth notes, we'd have 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So 1, 2, 3, and 4 would be considered kind of primary beats. And again, if there are experienced musicians out there, this is probably very old hat to you. So when we put an accent on an and, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. That is a syncopated feel, and it can be very cool. It can be a really good way to kind of lend a bit of anticipation to what's going on. So we get this and 4 and 1 with these chords. So we get a little different feel. And now, I'm kind of thinking this would be a great place to modify the drums to match this. So what I can do here, throw in something like this. So now that snare drum is going to hit along with it and give us a little more kind of urgency, a little more energy on those syncopated chords. I'm kind of digging the feel. And again, this bass is doing, as far as what you're playing, this is kind of boring. But in the intro portion that we were working on a little earlier, we wanted a little more information happening in the bass. And hopefully that's coming through loud enough for people to hear it reasonably well. We want that information is adding to what the guitars are doing by accentuating different parts of a chord and kind of changing the feel of the chord that's being played in the music. So now this part is really all about rhythm. These chords right now, and I'm going to change these chords a little bit. Right now, this works well. This is nothing but a B power chord all the way through this, because these are all B notes on the bass, and then we have the B and its fifth note. So just real simple, and this absolutely works. So I'm kind of digging that, and I've got a pretty good sense of where I'm going to go with this. But here's another cool, particularly for the people who aspire to be music theory nerds like myself. We've been talking a lot about how the first note, third note, and the fifth note of a scale create a chord. And it doesn't necessarily have to be the first, third, and fifth notes. It could be the second note, second, fourth, and sixth, the third, fifth, and seventh. We would still refer to those as a 1, 3, 5, and that's a part of music theory that can be a bit on the confusing side in the early stages. It does make sense, but what I can do here is say, okay, now if B is 3, then G is 1. So now this note, which is our tonic of our scale, this now becomes the 3 of my chord. And so basically, by knowing this, I can put this chord in and have it be very congruent without changing the bass at all. This is a very congruent chord here. And that kind of changes the feel a little bit. And so there's a lot of ways we could do this. I could now even say, if B is 1, D is 3, I've skipped the 5 and added in a 7. And so I can put this other chord in place. And again, as we mentioned earlier, when I was deleting that stuff, I may or may not like this. I don't have to use any of this. This is all deletable. That actually works pretty well. So if we put this into tablature, so we can see how it's played on guitar, something like this, I would probably play it more like that. Actually, this one I might leave here. And in fact, get a little more juice on that G chord. And now that I'm thinking about it, I actually kind of like this idea. And add a fourth above this, and that will be a repetition of the D note. So this is becoming a little bit bigger chord here. And now what I'm going to do Okay, so that's this 4-measure section. I'm gonna bump this down to an E for the next 4 measures. So we're moving down a 5th. And as we mentioned earlier, the 5th of something leads well to that something. So the B is the 5th of E. So I'm kind of pushing your ear to a new tonal center in this case. So I'll come up here and reinforce that new tonal center with the guitar. And we're going to be using a very similar idea. So now listen to how this it almost kind of makes sense when we go to the E chord here. It feels pretty good. Except what I'm going to do now is I don't want to just keep this same feel going the full time. So I'm going to let this chord ring out. And I may actually change from the E. Even though the E makes sense, I may go a little different, but I also want to I want to keep this basic syncopated concept in place here. With the D chord leading into that works pretty well. I think I am going to put this drum thing here, but I think this time I'm going to pull this out and just have the snares going on that. Oops. Save this again. Yeah, because this is such a large file, sometimes the save function takes a few seconds. In fact, I think I'm actually going to put the kick in with the snare to power that up a little more. Yeah. So here, so we basically have so D, F sharp, and A would be our D major. And so with this B chord, this could be a very good place to put in an F sharp and again complete the chord. Yeah, that works a little better. And I hit save all the time, so sometimes I don't even realize I've saved something, and it'll just take a moment to get back to it. So that's better. I think I'm going to re-hit that E chord here. And then what I'm going to do, again, syncopate this a little bit. I'm going to put this E chord back into play right here. So this is going to be the equivalent of this, that 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So I'm hitting on the 1 and on the and of 4. And so now I think I'm going to take this somewhere else. And in this case, I'm going to take it to an A. So I'm going to have the bass continue to play the E because that is congruent with the A. That's the 5 of the A. And I'm going to turn this one into a whole note as well. And now what I'm hoping to do is bring this to an F sharp. I want to go higher with it. Let's put these back into the tablature here. So we get that in place. Now I'm going to want to take this to an F sharp, but I'm going to use a new concept here. Well, I shouldn't say new concept, one we haven't used in this composition thus far. A concept of a secondary dominance. And this is a concept that I have to use caution to ensure that I don't use this too much, because it's very easy for me to overuse this because I like it so much and it's a great feel. And so the secondary dominant is basically a way of leading us back to something that may not be where we would expect it to go, or to have a less expected. Basically, it makes resolutions feel like they belong, even if it's a little bit of a wonky one. So in this case, if I were to create the correct chord for an F sharp, I would have an F sharp minor. Or if I use the 7th scale degree, I'd have an F sharp minor 7. And so what we're going to do is we're going to turn this into a dominant chord. And to do that, we leave the 1, 3, and the 1, 5, and 7 where they are, but we modify the 3. So I can put that on the 7. You put this on the 3. And so I would raise that 3 by a half step. And that's going to make this chord feel major. And in fact, here, you know what? I've got an idea here. I'm going to put this in as half notes, and I'm going to modify the second half of this to be a secondary dominant. So we're going to go from a minor to a major. So I'll want to leave this as a minor 3. I'm going to put this one in as a major 3. And maybe put in a 5 here. Let's see if that works. I like that. And this is very similar to what I did on my last album in the title track, Schizonoid Paraphrenic. It's a very high-paced, high-energy piece, and it's standard rock ensemble plus a synth choir. And there's a piano break in the middle. And just as I'm coming up to the piano break, I use this same basic concept where I move to a major chord like that. I think it might even be like a half measure in advance. And I like that. That really worked well in that particular case. And the great thing is, all I did here was, this is an A note, I modified it to an A sharp. Same exact thing here. I took an A note to an A sharp. I will often use the 7th note of my chord. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I use the 1, 3, 5, and I'd like to use the 7 in these because I feel like it adds a bit of color to the chord. And I also feel like in this case, this might work a little better to drop us down in. So instead of the root here, maybe put that on the 5. And maybe even put this on like the 6. You know, actually, I'm not digging that. I say it again. Give it a moment. Pure habit. I don't need a repeat of what happened at Riverside Studios that night and lose 4 hours worth of work. So I'm not digging the bass line there. I thought I was going to like that better. I definitely do not. So what do we got? We got 5, we got 3, we got 5 here. I'm going to put this back to the root. Actually, what if I put that on the root? What if I put this on the 6? And this sometimes I'll just go through this and just play with these notes over and over. That I like a lot better. The 6, 7, and I think what I like here is this 6 of my chord is the 3 of my next chord. So the 6 of the F sharp is the 3 of the B minor. And so this is kind of giving us a little bit of anticipation as to what's coming up. And then, you know, we also hit the root of that chord. We hit the 1, the 3, and the 5. So that's all in place. And so this is a fairly robust little chunk here. Let's listen to this 8 measure section. Oh, why is that messing with me? I like that. I don't care for the A chord here. And so this is, when you have something like this, and even as we talked about a little while ago, I had that one measure I'd written out that had the funky chords in it and stuff, and I was like, I don't like this. So we talked about the necessity of deleting it. And we talked about how that can be difficult because you become emotionally attached to what you've written. And that can happen on something as simple as this. It's like, that's my chord. I put that chord in place. I want that to be the right chord. And I don't feel like it is the right chord. So I kind of wanted this bass line to stay on the E. I don't really want an E chord all the way through. So I can look at, what other chords contain an E. So I could look at, so the A does. Of course, the E contains an E. And right now I'm only working with 1, 3, and 5 because that's so much of the basis of what we do. The other one would be a C. And so we could listen to that C chord and see if I like that a little better. And I do. I should say C sharp. In this case, it would be a C sharp, E, and G. So I'm actually going to take this G to a G sharp so that I have a complete power chord instead of, and I don't want a diminished chord in this case. We did intentionally put some diminished chords in earlier. I think the C sharp is going to work a little better. And the reason for that is that it is the 5 of F sharp. So C sharp is the 5 of F sharp is the 5 of B. So we basically have this series of 5 of 5 going on. So the 5 of 5 of tonic. Let's see if this works. I like that a lot better than the A chord in that case. That works pretty nicely, I think. And down here that shows what parts of the song we've done. So, I wrote that intro section. I just copied it to everywhere that section shows up again. Well, this is, the second break. I label it as break 2. That doesn't appear anywhere else in the song. So no copy pasting needed. That is only going to happen once. Now I could change my mind on that. If I wanted to put this in place somewhere else, I can easily modify this song because, let's face it, I'm still writing it. We can do whatever we want with this. But sometimes it's really good, particularly, I tend to be fairly progressive in the way that I approach writing rock and metal music. And definitionally in this case, the word progressive can have different meanings to different people. So not everyone agrees on what progressive rock or progressive metal is. The way that I'm defining progressive with this usage is it progresses from idea to idea in such a way that we are not required to come back around and pick you up. So if you miss this part of the song, you may not get to hear it again. And so we're progressing through and going to new ideas more consistently than worrying about the old ideas. So that's the way that I kind of term progressive. And there was an interesting experience for me on the song The Sestina of Life, which has not been published. It would require both male and female singers to complete that song. And I'm just not in. I am still working very diligently on my own vocals. I'm pretty happy with where I've gotten to with a lot of it. I do have 4 albums that I'm working on that will be vocal albums, that those may or may not be released at some point in the future. I'm not promising anyone those will ever be made public. But those albums are The Thief of Time, Tokyo Sunrise, The Death Sonnets, and The Villain. The Death Sonnets and The Villain are pretty hardcore progressive metal. And Tokyo Sunrise, that's Tokyo for Tokyo, Washington, a small town in Washington State that inspired the song. The town actually burned down in 1998 and was never rebuilt. And then The Thief of Time. So Tokyo Sunrise and Thief of Time, those are kind of lighter. They're very heavily inspired by an artist named Justin Sullivan. If you don't know Justin Sullivan, you may know New Model Army. He is the lead singer for New Model Army, and he has the solo album called Navigating by the Stars. It is one of my all-time favorites, and it's a lighter piece, but man, the work he does in that is just so freaking brilliant, and it's a really engaging album, very eminently listenable. And it's one of those, there's kind of a controversy about listening to music while you exercise. I often do. And when I'm jumping rope, particularly, I'll be more listening to metal and stuff. But like when I go on a run, I might put some real calm thing, like Navigating by the Stars in, and just go out and just chill out for 6 miles while I'm running. And it's not even, the music's not even about getting me pumped up for exercise. So I don't need to get pumped up to exercise. If you're not, if you're new here today, you probably figured out that I'm a high energy little dude. So I don't need to get pumped up to go out and exercise. I love exercising. I'm going to exercise when I get done with the stream tonight. It's way too cold to go running. There's ice on our roads. But yeah, I'm going to be in here. I'm going to be doing some exercising. I might do some hula hooping. I might do a little ballet, push-ups, pull-ups, sit-ups. My ankles are still a little sore, so I probably won't be rope jumping tonight. But yeah, I exercise a lot, and it's awesome. So yeah, for me, the music's not about that. But man, Navigating by the Stars is just you can meditate to it. And very nicely done. So that really inspired the way that I'm writing a lot of the music for Tokyo Sunrise and Thief of Time. Thief of Time is a concept album, and it's, I have so often said that the vast majority of my song titles, because this is all instrumental music, they're meaningless. I do have Standing at the Airport Waiting for a Train. That will probably be a lyric song. Again, so I guess that's kind of a fifth lyric album that I'm writing. That's a blues one. So that means something. And The Thief of Time, that one is probably my most meaningful. It's a concept album about the fact that there is someone who steals time from us through our entire lives. And that someone is yourself. And that's just it. There's no other good way around that. We steal so much time from ourselves. It's kind of stupid, really. And we shouldn't. And everyone's guilty of it. I mean, if any of you out there are familiar with Jocko Willink, he's this, go-getter kind of guy, former Navy SEAL commander, and it's just all about getting after it and, exercising, 53 hours a day or whatever. Very cool guy. Even he says, there's times that you just, you look back on your day and you're like, oh, that was a complete waste. So, everyone does it. But I feel like I've got some pretty good ideas. Only one song on that is fully composed. It's called It's a Long Story. And that is the opening track. And the very final track that is also titled Thief of Time. That one I'm almost done composing. It wouldn't take much to have that one done. But again, whether or not anyone ever hears those, that's up for question. I shouldn't say if anyone else ever hears them. I will hear them. You guys may not. You may. I don't know. I'm just as I'm just yakking here. I'm just kind of filling in a few little drum things. I realize I do want a drum hit where this guitar hits on this syncopation on the and of 4. And I think that if I put a snare on this one as well, maybe make this one a tom, and I should probably put a snare here. Yeah, that works better. I can get behind that. Absolutely. And this is something, when you are improvising over something like this, you really kind of got to have an awareness of what's going on with your various chord substitutions. Like this isn't going to affect much. I can just solo right over that, and I can just stay in key. I might notice this and say, okay, well, that's going to push me into more of a Dorian tonality. So I could very easily visualize that I'm going to need to play a sharp 6 if I play the 6 in my solo. But even if I don't, that's going to be a very kind of transitional, transitory kind of a thing. It's not going to really hurt to have that minor ninth happen, even if I played it in the same octave, which I might be playing way up here. And so, but yeah, but here it's really good for me to know, hey, I went to a secondary dominant here. And so, if I'm soloing over something like this, I might even intentionally play that major 3, which is out of key. If I'm in key, it's so that's the kind of thing I do watch for when I'm improvising over these. But at this point too, I don't know that there's still going to be a solo going on. So certainly when I play this, I strongly visualize there being a guitar playing, like I said, it's kind of slow bendy thing over this general area. So, I could, just pause right there. I wouldn't even have to worry about it. But nonetheless, whether you're going to pause there or not, you want to know that there's a secondary dominant there, or there's a chord substitution. In this case, that chord substitution is a secondary dominant. And, how are you going to handle that? Maybe you don't handle it at all. Maybe right there I do nothing. Maybe right there I go to the major third of my scale. Or whatever, I guess in this case, I was going to the major third would work there, but I could go to the. A lot of ways to make that. There's a lot you could do with that. There's a lot I could do to make that one work. So I've got a couple sections composed. That's really not bad considering how much I've been yakking my face off. Like I said, when I am just composing and I'm not on stream, then I'm usually doing this stuff a lot faster. But what's great here is because this song has intro, A, B, a break, and a second break, all I've got left is an A section and a B section. If I had been doing my next song, that one has a C section. And I always like the C section because that's just fun to say. But let's keep working this piece here. So, a lot of times I'll be looking at this and just be like, okay, what are these various sections doing? And so our intro is very upbeat. And it looks like our A section also remains, if we just look at what the drums are doing. So we've got pretty good energy going in those. And our first break that we have yet to compose, obviously double kick. And then our B section looks like it's a bit, so we basically had that slower second break. And now kind of what I'm feeling right now. I talked earlier about audiation, how you hear what might go on here. Because this is very high energy, and I'm thinking I'm probably going to want to stay pretty high energy in the A section. On this break, where I've got these double kick drums going, and again, I've got, like we did at the end of the song, I've already built in here a very long drum fill to lead out. Sometimes it can be really good to take something like this and slow the other instrumentation down. It's like on that second break that we already composed, we talked about how what we did there is we made the bass be a more primary focus than the guitar. We punctuated the guitar and let that bass kind of drive things. The drums are very slow there, letting the bass drive it. So now, our intro is pretty driving with all of the instruments. Everything's kind of pushing us right along. And I intend to continue to do that throughout the A section. So in this break section, what I can do is I can kind of change the energy level of the guitars. And so a lot of times, I'll punch this in and I'll just start with the root note. And this chord is absolutely subject to the possibility of change. But we'll just bring this in here, put in our bass note, and we might just do something like this on the guitars. And now the drums are just driving everything along for us. This kind of thing can work really well. And another thing I like to do in conjunction with something like this, and this is something I've done many times, is you take and you'll put a bit of syncopation of some kind in. So rather than re-hit the chord here, like maybe I could do something like this, and so now we're just going to hear the chord change. And that works. But what I often like to do is we'll have this chord in place, and I'm just going to tie these across. So now that chord does not get re-hit. So I'll take this, I'm going to put this back into this view, panorama view. I'm going to take these, I'm going to turn this into a dotted quarter note. I could just easily have gone 8th note. Basically, I want, when this guitar comes back in, I want it to hit on an and, not on a 1, 2, 3, or 4. So I want this to hit in a syncopated spot. And then I'll just take something like this and hit some 8th notes here. Now I'm probably going to change the actual note in a moment, but as we talked about right in the beginning, sometimes just working with just your rhythmic device can be a really good way to get the right feel in place, and then you can modify chords afterward. That's not bad. I think I might be feeling it a little more like this should be here. We should come in on the and of 1 rather than the and of 2. In fact, I think what I might do here is pull that. Yeah. I'm almost considering the possibility of going with a further syncopation. No, I like it. On that one, I like it hitting on the 4. This is a cool little trick. If you've got the same note in your guitar and bass, move one down and one up, and they will now be thirds. And so you're changing the chord, but you didn't have to work very hard for it. If you move them 2 positions, they'll be fifths. Want the same basic concept going on over here. So now we're on a G note. kind of like this. So put this in tablature so we can see how it looks on a guitar. And so this is the kind of place I mentioned earlier. Sometimes I prefer my fretted position over an open one. So this can be a really good one to kind of give consideration to. Do I want to play the open string here for functionality sakes, or do I want to play the fretted note? Yeah, no, I can totally go to the fretted note. This one, it's not going to make much of a difference either way, particularly with a more heavily distorted feel to what I'm doing. The open strings aren't as big of a deal, but this, I think, is where I want it to go. I'm going to actually play along. Kind of a cool thing in Sibelius is if you highlight a track or set of tracks, it plays only those tracks. And I can play along with my actual guitar. Yeah, I like that. And on this one, I think I am going to not do the syncopation. Oops, I'm in the wrong position. There we go. And I'm going to change this one up to an A here. And then I believe this is an 8 measure section. No, it looks like 16. Okay. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to repeat the 4 measures, but now I'm going to move this down to an F sharp. Like that. And then on the second half of this, so a lot of times right here I could just put in a repeat, copy this over exactly, but sometimes you can add a little better energy to what you've got going on if you do a little more than that. And so I feel like I've got this 8 measure thing. Even though the drums are essentially a repeat, I want to change the feel of this here. So you could even, you could call this like a new section as far as the guitars are concerned. I often don't. I just accept that there's not necessarily a consistent 4 measure or 8 measure or 16 measure pattern with any particular segment of my song. And basically, when you're writing your own music, you need to know how you are organized. That's the most important thing. Other people don't need to know how you're organized. Because no one else has to come in and write my music. In fact, no one else is welcome to come in and write my music. I do not use ghostwriters for this. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like a lot of country artists do not write their own material. Some of the most well-known country songs, and I love country music. Some very well-known country songs were not written by the original artist. Really, even if you look at the Beatles, the Beatles, I want to say the first 2 or 3 albums were mostly cover tunes. Their later stuff, and I think much of their best work is their originals. And I think there are some originals on their early albums, but there are a lot of songs they didn't write there. And it's great work. So, there's nothing wrong with a ghostwriter or however you want to look at it. I guess it wouldn't really be a ghostwriter because usually in music they do credit the actual author of the music. Though legally they don't have to. You can do what's known as a work for hire. So for example, the few times that I have been commissioned to write for video, I've done one full-length documentary and some smaller, one television show that never aired or went anywhere, and a couple of little things for the web, one movie preview that I think was more of just kind of a project. Technically, once I'm contracted with that, I am considered a work for hire, and the person who paid me, which paid is a loose word in the amateur arena, but technically, contractually, they can actually list themselves as the composer, It's their music. They own all of it. Now, like when I did most of that, most of my scoring work has been done for free, in which case I contractually put in that I retain the copyright. They do not own it. And so, for example, if they were to put out, the documentary I did is very small time. And so, you're probably never going to hear a soundtrack album come out from it. But if the producer were to want to put out the Single in Seattle soundtrack, he would have to have my permission for that. And I could deny, I would let him. It wouldn't bother me a bit. Nice guy. But technically, legally, I would have the right to say you cannot put out that soundtrack. So work for hire is kind of weird stuff when you get right down to it. This is exactly why so many photographers are very protective of the copyright of their work, because once the photographer has taken the picture, they own it. But if there's a contract with the model or the agency, then the model or the agency or whoever, they own it. And a lot of times, they don't necessarily want someone else controlling their creative property, their intellectual property, and that's totally understandable. I'm a pretty relaxed dude about that stuff. And fortunately, the people that I have worked with on the films, the web series, the preview, a television show, they were all really cool people, and so it's like, largely I'm doing it just, hopefully to be cool as well. I don't need to go out and prove myself and, show you how much trouble I can cause for you if you use my stuff. That's not me at all. So what do we got going on here? So I want to kind of change the pace. Now, in this case, it'd be very easy to go back to just really super high energy on the guitars like we did on the intro. But I think what I'd like to do here is kind of go to more of like a halftime feel and keep it pretty low key. And ending on the F sharp here as I did, this takes me back to a B note, the tonic of my key, very effectively. So doing something like this. And this is going to be, of course, much more effective once I put it into place with an actual recording, because on my guitar, I will be muting this. For guitar players out there know, you can put your palm on the edge of your strings and really change the timbre, the tonal quality of how that comes across. So this will be a fairly heavily muted thing. So if we were to play this on the actual guitar, and hopefully the balance is pretty well out there. So something like that, we're still letting the drums be the kind of driving element to what's going on here. We want the guitar to be sitting there, filling in the frequency response that we want to hear overall, but we don't want the guitar to be taking over. And so with this, now I don't want to do I could just do 8 measures of just a B note. And that could actually work fine, because again, there would likely be some sort of a guitar solo going on over this. And like in the second break, I would probably go with a slower guitar solo over something like this. No guarantees. Every time I perform a piece, it's going to be different. And one time I might take something like this and do a slow solo. The very next time I play the same song, I might do a really fast solo. It's just going to be different every time. That's the nature of improvisation. But I think in something like this, I might want to maybe not go completely straight eighth notes, but kind of lead myself into something a little different here. And maybe take this to a dotted quarter note, so we're getting a little syncopation on the end of. Actually, I'll probably leave that on the bass as eighth notes, and go to my dotted quarter here. And probably wouldn't want this to be on the same chord. So we're going from a B, we go up to a C, a sharp. Okay, we will tie this across, bring this in on another syncopation, maybe bring this down to an A chord. And so we won't want that. I'm going to pick this up to the C here, so it'll be on the 3. Leave this on the A. Now we bring this back in on the syncopation. Something like that. Let's see how that fits in. That'll be a little funky to. I'll probably have to practice that one a couple of times. Let's see how well I can get the rhythm on that right off the bat here. Oops, it's wrong spot. That's not too bad. Yeah, that works. The one thing I'm feeling right now though is the C sharp to the A. So we're in a B minor tonality. We have the notes B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G, A. So the B is a minor scale, which is going to create a minor chord. When we go from a C sharp to an A to a C sharp, if we think of this in that chordal respect, A to C sharp is a major dyad. It's a major third. And so this suddenly feels way too happy to me. This feels like a real upbeat thing all of a sudden going to that A. And the reason for this, I believe, is because the C sharp to the A makes this feel very major. So basically from this last bit here where we have this A, this suddenly feels way too upbeat for me. This is the wrong feel for what I think should be a fairly aggressive feeling song. So now it's okay, well, where else are we going to go? Now, I could modify those, and this might actually be a reasonable way to do it. I can modify these. This would give this kind of a Phrygian feel through this part of the song. I could, and particularly here, because I went to the 3, that is an A major chord. So that's very solid. So this is going to kind of feel like a B Phrygian. I don't know if this will work. That's better. Because we have given ourselves a very strong diatonic composition overall. We do have that one position where we went to the secondary dominant and that second break. But that, we're modifying the 7th note of the B minor scale for that. And, not the 7th. Anyway, it's a fairly normal thing to do. And so that doesn't take us very far out. This, because we've established B minor so strongly up to this point, I feel like this feels a little bit abrupt. Let me give myself just a little more context here and see what we get. I don't dislike it, I don't like it. I'm right down the middle on this one. And I've done things like this before that it goes both ways. Sometimes I'm like, yeah, that really fits. Sometimes not so much. This time I'm just really not sure about it. And so what that tells me is I should probably go back to the C sharp and experiment with this being a different chord. So one way I could do here is I can say, okay, in my B minor tonality, I have my 3 minor chords are going to be on the B, the E, and the F sharp. So this could be a really good place to look at these if I'm kind of working diatonically. Where can I go? So what if I put this on an E chord? The E chord feels like kind of the wrong movement here for me. So what if we take it to an F sharp? Oops. Now I know that looks like an F in the tablature. Like I said, this program is not built for guitars. I had to really familiarize myself with the interface and the functionality of this to be able to effectively do guitars in it. Now I kind of feel like the F sharp works, but the C sharp leading to the F sharp does not. And so normally C sharp to F sharp is a very solid move, but because I'm using the C sharp in the F sharp chord directly over like this, it kind of makes this a little too subtle. So one thing we could think about here is use the 5 of this 5, so we could go to a G sharp. Now this could be, so I have a G natural in this piece, but if I modify these up to a G sharp, so this would be a minor second. So if I modify these up to a major, I'm not sure if this is going to work or not. I'm not digging this. This part is not working for me. Let me try it with a G natural. Diatonic. That totally works. I was thinking that G sharp was going to work because it's the 5 of 5, but in this case the minor 9 is working much better. And I totally understand if anyone out there listening is not necessarily well steeped in some of the terminology we use in music theory. If these numbers don't make sense to you, that's pretty understandable. And then I think what I might do here is drop this down to the E and finally go into some 16th notes. Like this. I will leave the bass on 8th notes, because again, at this pace, doing 16th notes on the bass can kind of muddy up the works a bit. And I feel like, here we've got our F sharp. The 16th notes are totally working for me here. I feel like this, we've kind of picked up the pace from whole notes, then we get the chunk going, a little bit of pause, back to the 8th notes, back to 16th notes. We're kind of building the energy. And so now basically the energy of the guitars is matching the energy of the drums, or very close to it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to let the drums and continue to have that energy. I'm going to leave the energy of the bass the same. I'm going to go into a D power chord. And this would be an inversion of a power chord because I don't have a low enough D note on a standard tuned guitar to play this. Now here, what I was hoping to do with the bass was I took that up to the 3rd of the chord because the root is out of position. So the 4-string bass, which I often prefer to work with, is this doesn't go low enough to get that. So, you'd have to retune your bass for this one measure, or, go to a drop D and it would rearrange everything that you're doing. And I don't put my tab up for the bass because I can just do that whenever. The bass is simple enough that I don't need to worry about that. So by putting this on the F sharp, we went to the third, but the third is a major third in this case. Yes, F sharp. So we would have a major, and so that chord's not working for me as a major chord. And so because I'm not able to put it on the root low, I'm going to try it on the fifth. And that works. I also do want to try it on the root. And we'll just put it up an octave. That absolutely works. And now here, sometimes if we feel like something like this might feel a bit abrupt, it can be a great idea to kind of work your way up. So here we'd have a 3 and a 5. So this is just reinforcing the E minor chord. And then this would, basically the D is the 7 of that chord. So this would ramp up very nicely. And sometimes I'll even take this a little further. And so now I'm going to have a 3, and then a 5, and then a 6. Moving in, and that would be again the 7 of the E, which is now the root of our new chord. And I really do like the 6, and I use the 6 as the opening chord on the song. Yeah, that's totally working for me. And I almost feel like if we were to kind of give just a nod to something here, we'll put a 9 in that. Yeah, that's absolutely working. Okay, let's make this a bit smaller again here. Okie dokie. So now I'm basically on my final 4 measures. And so I started out with, I did these 4 measures with whole notes and kind of punctuated with some eighth notes. So a lot of ringing stuff here, and the eighths are mostly just single notes. So I finally bumped it up to some 16ths and bring it right back down to just whole again. And I think I'm going to put this on a half. And I'll modify this. Bye-bye mocha. Hello water. And because I'm doing this, I think I'm going to give just a little bit of feel of change on this by bringing this back down to the 5. So we're maintaining the same chord. Again, I don't want to go to the 3 in this case because I don't really care for the major feel of this chord in this position. And that's, in classical music, we're much more likely to be using those varieties of types of thirds. In metal, we're less likely to do that. And so, like, if I were putting my string section in here, which I don't know if there will be synths or strings or an organ or a piano or anything else on this song. There may be, there may not be. There, I'm going to be much more likely to use that F sharp and create, turn this into a major chord. It's when I do it on these instruments that I don't tend to like it as much. In the string ensemble or on a synthesizer or an organ, I'm much more likely to want that note to be there. And it's just, different textures in your music is really all that comes down to. Take this one down to a C sharp here. And so let's see, if we're on the F sharp would be the 5 of that. That makes sense. What if I went to the 7 on? Now let's just see how that sits. So if I'm on an F sharp in a B, so that's going to be a minor 7. Let's see how that fits. So that's not bad. That feels like we talked about with the diminished fifth earlier. Oh, I've got a diminished fifth here. I'll say that feels very restless. That's because I've got my, in this case, I'm probably going to, oh, I see what happened. Oh, wait, so I'm gonna want to change my this to here so that I actually have a C sharp with a perfect fifth instead of a diminished fifth. And this may not feel as restless now. That's what I want it to feel like right there. Now that minor 7 is absolutely working. So I've got a 1, 5, and 7 in this chord. So I've omitted the 3, and that's very common. We're using a power chord, but we're still adding some color in with that minor 7. Now let's take this down to here. Now we're on a B. So now, and so this is kind of a cool trick here. So what I did here is I've got the D note, I put the bass on its 5, and then I went to the C sharp power chord here. So by moving the bass up just 1 note, that puts it on at 7, and then I go to the B chord here, I move this up 1 more time, it goes to the root. So on the bass, we get this very smooth movement, bringing us back up like this. That's absolutely working for me. Oops, not quite what I was looking for there. Whole note. 8th note. And this is one of those places where I might just let the drums rip. And so just leave that as basically a tacit measure. Yeah, I think I'm good with that. Hit the save button on that thing. And so now I've got to look at something here real quick because I feel like there might be something going on in Twitch. Mute. Okay, maybe not. We hit the administrator. And there's a few things I still am not sure about with my chat. And like I said, it can be really tough to get the chats to be reasonably functional when you are streaming to so many different websites. Stream Manager. All right. Okay, I think we're, so if there is someone new in chat and you put up a message, I didn't see it, my apologies. There's an indicator that there may have been something going on in chat and I'm not sure if it was important. So I'm unclear. But I always try to not miss messages in this, but I am an imperfect human being. So there you go. Okay. So yes, if I've missed chats from anybody on any of the platforms, that is never my intention. I do like to try to engage people as they come in, and sometimes I miss. So I know for a few days ago, I had a couple people on YouTube that were chatting and I didn't see them. And one of them was a friend of mine, so she emailed me. She's like, I think you might be missing messages on YouTube. Just thought you should know. And so yes, still working out some bugs. But, yeah, and again, if anyone's coming in, if you don't know what we are here, I'm the Mad Poet. My name is Randy. I go by Randolph the Mad Poet online. And today we're doing a composition stream. We're just writing some music. This is going to be for an upcoming album. I don't know which album. I just released my 66th album last Saturday. It was titled Schizonoid Paraphrenic. And I'm currently working on my 67th, 68th albums, and 69th. The 69th is going to be an interesting one because I'm going to do that show in drag. And Sarah and I have already been talking about this, how we're going to do. The beard's going to go away for that one. And she's going to do me up with the crazy makeup. And I've got a big pink wig. I got a nice kind of 50s style pink dress. It's going to be high heels. I'm going full on for that one. And that album's going to be called Pink. And I've got some... there is going to be a vocal song on that, but it's probably going to be spoken word. I may sing on that album, just a couple of verses, but there is going to be a song. I don't want to give too much away, but I am going to be doing some spoken word type stuff on at least one song. And so there's going to be some changes coming up on that, and I'm going to be a girl for it. It's going to be awesome. So that will be fun, but my 67th and 68th album, 68th album is Asemic Writings Part 4, so that's just one song that's 52 minutes, 25 seconds long. I've written about probably a third of that song. And on my 67th album, I'm writing a half hour long, it's actually going to be 33 minutes, 33 seconds, because I like doing stuff like that. And it's a big tribute album to a former mentor of mine who passed a few years ago. And so some very cool stuff coming up. And normally, the composition streams, I don't do all that much. I know some people really enjoy watching this, listening to me just kind of geek out about music theory and how I approach my compositions and everything. So there'll definitely be more of these. On Thursday, I think I'm going to be doing a kitchen stream. We'll be back in the Blues Kitchen, the Mad Poet Blues Kitchen, because my oven's working again, so I'll be making a New York thin crust style pizza that day. I'm not sure that I'm going to do that on Thursday, but there will definitely be a kitchen stream coming up. But the most common, and if you're on Twitch or YouTube, I know that there are videos of all my past streams and performances, so you can kind of get a better sense from those of what I actually do. Usually it's more concert style. You see the lights on the ceiling back there and kind of off to the side, my guitars and all that. Give you a better view there. And so normally, I'll fill the room up with smoke, and those lights will be flashing in conjunction with my music, and I'll be hopping around like crazy and being just high energy little Randy. But today we're just composing music. And this, this file that I have open on screen here is it's just 4 albums worth of music that I've just been writing. This particular album that we're working on right now is called The Book of Lost Things. Just because I think that's a cool title. Doesn't mean anything. And I keep forgetting the Lost Glimpse of, I don't even remember what this song is called because I'm a dork. And I like being a dork, so that fits well. And this is a Lost Glimpse of All That Remains. That's the name of this song. So that's what we're doing here today. So again, if anyone's new, if you've put up a chat and I've missed it, my apologies. That is not my intent. But my chat stuff is a little bit weird. So yeah, we've written a bit of music here. And so now on this song, we've just got 2 sections left, the A and B sections. And I don't know if we'll finish this today. Like I said, if I weren't streaming and I weren't yakking so much, then likely this song would already have been done. But at the same time, if I was doing that, I would have put in different information. And that's something I've always, I get those kind of holistic thoughts at times. It's like, if I had written this song tomorrow, what would this song have been? It would have been different. If I wasn't sitting here doing this right now, I probably would be writing different notes. I might have chosen a different key tomorrow or yesterday, or if I'd started an hour later, an hour earlier. So this is what I happen to come up with, and I like it. This is cool. Another interesting kind of part of this is a lot of times I will write a song. I'll compose a song, and I'm like, there's nothing special going on here. This isn't that great. And then I get it done. I record the whole thing, and it's like, this is really good. I really like this. So I kind of have to proceed with a little bit of caution about my own work, because I can very easily get into a position of thinking, I just shouldn't finish this song because it's not that great. And I think one of the best examples of that is Fistful of Light off of the album Incomprehensible Isolation. And I was talking about that song. I've played that album a couple of times in the last 2 weeks. Excuse me. And I talked about how that song was just absolutely pivotal. When I was putting it together in the sheet music, I was like, nah, whatever. This is just going to be a so-so song. And it became the song that made me take so much time, over 2 years, to finish that album. Because that was the song that made me realize I needed to change my production in order to be able to hear properly the things that should have been going on in that song. I really wanted to hear the nuances of the string sections and the brass sections and all that stuff, some of the synths. And I wasn't hearing that, so I worked my production and screwed it up and fixed it and screwed it up and went all kinds of directions. And very happy with how it came out. If you haven't heard that song, go to themadpoet.net. All of my albums are available on there. There's a YouTube video. Just click on the album cover for whatever album, and there's a YouTube video for every song. There's links to my Bandcamp. And on Bandcamp, you can download my albums on a pay-what-you-can basis, completely free, up to whatever amount you may wish to pay. Or you can just stream them off of YouTube, and like I said, that's all available right in themadpoet.net, kind of the repository of all things Mad Poet. And just, that song, I didn't think I was going to care for it. And, where I really realized I needed to make those changes was when I was out running. And that's why that song is subtitled The Run. And now it's just like, that is just a running song for me. And in playing it, I mean, when I do that album and I get to that song, I'm just like, yes, go, awesome. It feels really good. So you never really know what your art is going to be. You don't even know if it's going to be art, really, when you're halfway done. And I've had plenty of songs that I thought were going to be great, and I went the other way. I'm like, don't even care for it. And I've had songs that I thought were going to be and they are. And I've, like Voices of the Soulless off of my 55th album, Patron Saint of Murderers. I've said this many times in performances, that song, I had this vision of what I wanted it to be. And when it got done, it was 100%. It was exactly the way I wanted it to come out. That composition completely met what my goal was for that composition. And that made me extremely happy. And that's another one. Super fun to play that one live. And when I say live, I'm talking about live here. I haven't done an in-person show for, probably 4 years, since well before the pandemic. And then, when we moved out here to the middle of Eastern Washington, as I've said, we don't live in the middle of nowhere, but we're within walking distance of the middle of nowhere. So I just started doing performances online, and I find that is a very positive way for me to do shows. It's great because I don't have to haul a bunch of amps around. I don't have to hang out in filthy bars. I'm not a bar person. So yeah, the online streaming thing is a really, really good way for me to work all of this. Anyway, let's compose a little more. This has been fun. Anyone out there watching, I hope you are enjoying it. If you're a musician or you're just interested in music theory or composition or whatever, I hope you are at least potentially getting some information out of this. So we're getting into, let's go and do the A section. So one thing I like to do here, let me move that back to the page view, is kind of get a sense of what did I do in setting up this piece of work? And so it's usually going to be broken up in 4 measures, 8 measures, 16 measures, 32 measures. So there are plenty of places where I'll do like a 9 measure thing or whatever, but this looks fairly standard. So that's an 8 measure section there. There's another 8 measures, and then I have a drum fill. That all makes sense. A smaller drum fill at 8 measures, a little more significant drum fill at 16 measures. And then 8 measures later, we got this. So I basically have an 8 measure groove going on the drums with a variety of different fills at the end of each 8 measures. So here, when we did the intro, we basically have a 4 measure concept that is repeated. And, I could easily do 4 measures and repeat it 8 times. I could do 8 measures, repeat it 4 times. I could do 16 measures, repeat it once. I could write just a big, full 32 measure long thing. A lot of times when we think about, even though I'm writing riffs here, I'm really not writing any kind of a musical phrase. With musical phrases, we think more along the lines of melody, which, and definitionally, melody is just a series of notes one after the other. So that would be a melody. Harmony is when we have notes played simultaneously. So basically, chords versus notes is really, a really basic way of looking at it. So a lot of times with phrases, we're thinking of that. But a musical phrase could absolutely be chord-based. It could be riff-based. And so if you kind of think in phrases, often in music, if we start to create a phrase that is too long, the mind will generally break it up into a series of smaller phrases. So it can be kind of hard to make a comprehensive phrase that is 32 measures long. It's like if you're writing a book or writing a story and you have one sentence that covers an entire page. It's probably too long. A person's brain is going to kind of break that up into smaller segments. We're going to parse it on our own. There certainly could be a place where a full page sentence is absolutely necessary. But you're going to have to be a really good writer to pull that off. I don't think I feel like I write fairly well. And actually, Sarah and I were talking just before I was streaming, and excuse me. She's going to redo my website. She's really good at web design. And we were talking about some ideas for actually setting up a blog, some musical education blog stuff, which will be completely free. I'm not going to do this to set up, hey, go buy my guitar course. I'm not interested in that. And so, yeah, I think I can pull that off. I think I write reasonably well. I don't consider myself a professional author. I don't think I should go try to get a job as a technical writer or anything, but I feel like I'm proficient. I don't think I could pull off the one-page sentence. I don't think I'm that guy. That's some Tolstoy level stuff right there. You gotta be really good. Douglas Adams could pull that off. Well, not anymore because of that whole heart attack and dying thing back in 20 years ago or whatever. But when he was alive, Douglas Adams is the kind of author that I think could pull off the full page sentence. He was really, really solid in his ability to put words together, and he could go on for a long time on an idea and really keep it very engaging. Not many authors could do that. I don't think Stephen King could do that. And I really like King. I'm a big fan of King's work. I've read a lot of Stephen King's books. Right now, I'm in the middle of reading all 32 of Robert Heinlein's novels in published order. I don't think Heinlein could have pulled it off. And Heinlein, I think, I would put as one of the top authors that I've ever read. I don't think he could pull off the one-page sentence. I could be wrong. I could be wrong on all these. I could be wrong on Douglas Adams, on Stephen King, on Robert Heinlein. But if I had to bet between those three pulling off the best sentence that long, I would put my money on Douglas Adams before either of those other guys. Douglas was good at long-form exposition. he nailed that stuff. And if you're not a fan of The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, if you've never read that, do yourself the favor. It's just a brilliant piece of work. So anyway, composition. So I'm kind of feeling like I'm going to do, what I'm probably going to do here is I'm going to do 8-measure phrase, and then I'm going to do a second 8-measure phrase, and then so that's kind of like 2 8-measure phrases to make up 16 measures, and then I will repeat that for the second 16 measures. So that's what I'm currently thinking that I'm probably going to go for here. And I'm kind of curious. I'm 3 hours 10 minutes into my stream. We're now into my longest all-time stream, which is very fun. And so we'll kind of see where this goes. The current application that I'm using for multi-streaming, if I understand correctly, only allows for 4 hours. So I might try to take it to the 4-hour mark and just see what happens and just get cut off just for fun. I doubt that I'm going to finish this song within an hour, but that's okay. We don't have to finish it here today. But so I'm kind of thinking 2 8-measure phrases for the A section. So again, we're still in B minor, and just the way I've been putting this together, I'm not feeling a key change in this song. I feel like this is going to be B minor throughout. I enjoy key changes in music. They can be really awesome. And I forget which album it's on. I have a song called The Boston Molasses Disaster, which was a real thing. Read up on it. It was wild. Like 80 people died in a molasses flood in Boston. I couldn't even tell the story well enough. It's crazy. But I kind of wanted to capture the energy of what I think the fear may have felt like when you're about to die under a massive wave of molasses. And in that, so one of my favorite key changes is modulation by a half step, up or down. And so basically, even though you're only moving by 1 fret on the guitar, it's a very distant relationship because so many notes change. So we've established C minor very well. When we go up to that C minor, it's very apparent. And so what I did, I forget how many times I did, but I basically started in a key, moved up a half step, up a half step, up a half step, like 4 or 5 times, and then back down a half step, down a half step, down a half step to the original key again. And things like that could be really fun. So, but yeah, it's, you just kind of get a sense of your own stylistic approach, and you get to know where you think things will fit best for your ideas. So in this particular song, I'm not feeling a key change. So we're still just in B minor. So as I pointed out, and as I hope is obvious, I write my drums first. Those are already done. Sometimes you do want your other instruments, your other elements to match what the drums are doing, but so often they don't need to. The drums are there. Really, a lot of what the drums are going to do is they're going to give us 1, 2, 3, and 4. And we can see here in this measure where I've highlighted these notes, those are 1, 2, 3, and 4. And in this measure, I have intentionally excluded the 3. So we're getting a 1, 2, and 4. And we do put this symbol on the 3, but I mean, really, this is just kind of it's nothing crazy about the drums in this. Just kind of a reasonably driving rock rhythm in the drums. We want to kind of think of what we're doing here, and so again, when we opened up the stream today, I started writing a riff in B minor. I chose B minor somewhat randomly. I was like, B minor looks good. Then I started, I got on the guitar and I started playing that. And that became our opening riff for the intro section. And so now another thing, you could do if you want to approach how are you going to write your riff, you can, if you do like I do, the drums are in place, play along, see what happens. And so, I've got plenty of material here to just play along for a moment. So if I do this, let me give myself a little better lead in there. Thought I had a little more time than I actually did. I'm going to bump this volume. I think my volume got turned down. This should not affect the volume on your end. And then I moved right into playing a lead guitar instead of a rhythm guitar, which is, in my shows, I'm most often playing lead guitar. I do play some rhythm as well. So let's try to get into a rhythm mindset. And you might come up with crap. It's kind of a cool riff, but I don't think it's right for this song. And so this is where you ask yourself another question. It's like, okay, that's kind of a cool riff. Should I open up my ideas file and lock that away as a future idea? Probably not. It's not that great. Because really all I'm doing there's nothing special going on there with that riff. It's kind of cool, but I'm really just playing notes out of the scale almost in order. It's really, that's something I've come up with that basic idea probably about 20,000 times. So I don't really feel like it's anything worth like taking a particular note of. It's not some super cool riff. I gotta say, I'm drawing a blank here. Sometimes you kind of get to that point where you're like, I don't know what to do here. And so let me just hit this a couple more times. See if I come up with anything else. Right now, I'm trying to come up with something on the guitar, is what I'm doing. And this, I will say here, this is not my primary way of coming up with ideas. A lot of guitar players really do almost all their work right on the guitar. I do most of my work in sheet music, and then I learn it on the guitar. So what I'm doing here is more illustrative, and I'm also illustrating the fact that I'm not in my primary realm right now. This is not my main way of doing this. But let me see if I can come up with something different. Not digging that at all. That's doing nothing for me. Again, those aren't necessarily like bad riffs or anything, but they're not what I think this song should be. So, in my opinion, try to do it a different way. So if you normally do it in sheet music and you're getting nothing, try it on the guitar. If you normally do it on the guitar and you're getting nothing, try it in sheet music. Try it on a piano. And there's the song Unknown Strangers and Lonely Acquaintances from Incomprehensible Isolation. That one was inspired by another streamer who goes by Sarah Jazz. And I said, as a result of her in my chat, I said, I'm going to do a song on saxophone on my next album. And so I wrote that song specifically to be played with a saxophone lead instead of a guitar lead. And it didn't work out. I've told the story before. It's not real important how it went together. But the actual motif riff, which I don't remember how to play right now, so I won't, that was actually composed on a saxophone. And I liked that riff, so I'm like, I'm totally keeping this. So it doesn't matter where you come up with the idea. Some of my students and musician friends, they'll come up with their idea by singing along. And then they'll transfer that to a bass or a guitar or piano or whatever. It doesn't matter where the idea comes from, but it can be a really good idea to play around with different possibilities for your ideas and see what it leads you to. And I've done that as well, like the song 18 Iron Chains to Bind the Wicked King off of the album An Innocent Assassin. I don't know if I can remember this motif quite right. So this is like the motif of the lead guitar. Something like that. And I did that by singing. What I actually did was I just sang the title of the song. And this could be a really good way to come up with ideas. Like, okay, 18 Iron Chains to Bind the Wicked King. And I just started singing that, and that's the melody I came up with by singing it. And that one, it really fits that song well. I feel like that flows. That's dedicated to my friend Marie. She's awesome. Yeah, Marie Ventris. She's great. And that's also an interesting piece because it actually opens up in 7/4 rather than 4/4. So it's like 4 measures of 7/4 for the intro, and then it goes to 4/4. So every time the intro part hits, it's back into 7/4. And again, it just kind of worked for the feel that I was going for on that particular song. So anyway, it's great to find whatever method you work. So since the guitar is not working, let's go to the computer. Let's go to the sheet music. And now, one of the things I'm thinking right away here is this might be a good place to get into not starting out with power chords. So since I don't want to go with the power chord, go perhaps with the dyad. So a dyad is a 2-note chord. So technically, a power chord is a dyad. You're using the 1 and 5. We more commonly think of the dyad as the 1 and the 3. So that's what I'm referring to when I say dyad. And again, sometimes you'll start out with a little idea, and then you will ideate. And you'll be like, oh, this is where it should go. So this might just be the kind of thing we're looking for. I'm feeling that. I think I want a little more information on the beat 3. Instead of altering my drum, because the drums could definitely help that, but by altering my bass, yes. And so the question is, so right now I've got my bass hitting on the root of the chord. And I get to the 3. So I've already established the 3 with my guitar. So do I want the 5 here? Maybe put the 5 down lower. Bring that up with the 6. That I think works pretty well. So even though my kick drum has excluded the 3, beat number 3 in this case, I'm reestablishing it with the bass. And this is somehow I tell particularly my newer students who aren't as steeped in the system yet. In music, we use numbers a lot. I mean, we're obviously seeing that. I'm just sitting here basically speaking in numbers. And it's really easy to get confused because we're using numbers for the strings on the guitar, for the frets, for our fingers, for scale degrees and chord tones. Numbers are all over the place. Rhythmic devices, so many numbers. It's so easy to get confused on the numbers. So if I'm rattling numbers off, and if you're not well steeped in the music theory and the rhythmic devices that are going on, don't worry about it. This stuff's not important. I mean, this is not like it's a pizza or something, right? Pizza's important. Come on. So now I'm again, just audiation. I'm kind of feeling that I need to come up here, and I almost feel like I established a rhythmic device right away of 8th note into 16th notes. And I was thinking the quarter note was going to work, but as soon as I heard it, it doesn't. The chord is right. The rhythmic device was not. So I'm going to I'm going to put that back to the B note. Let's put this in our bass, turn those all into that. And I think I'm actually going to turn these now into eighth notes. And I'm going to turn them into a chord. And here I'll put the power chord in, but I don't know that I still want the B here. Let's listen to that with a B. And I'll want technically that's not correct. We're getting rid of the diminished fifth. A diminished fifth is not a tritone. And this is something that there's a bit of confusion about, particularly in a lot of internet spaces. The diminished five is often referred to as a tritone. And though technically it's the same two frequencies, a diminished fifth is not a tritone. An augmented fourth is a tritone. And I will give a pass to people who refer to a diminished fifth as a tritone. It certainly can function as a tritone, but when you get into the deeper levels, well, you might even say the more kind of pedantic levels of music theory, it's definitely not the case that they are not the same thing. I think these should be thirds instead of power chords. Put that power chord up there on that. So that's that works. This might work better if I just establish this as a chord progression. So basically what we'd be doing, a chord progression would be the B minor chord, C sharp minor chord, D major chord, C sharp minor. So we're basically a 1, 2, 3, 2 chord progression in this. And you could almost say that this is acting in a passing fashion or like a neighbor chord. So you could almost say this is just a 1-2 chord progression if you wanted to simplify it. That I think I dig a little better. Maybe moving this 8 to the 5. So we're still on the C sharp there, so I would want to kill the diminished chord in that case. Something feels wrong there. Let me just redo that. Okay, I got it. Nope, that one is, I was not on the C sharp there. I should not. That one is not a diminished fifth. Let me let that finish saving a moment, and then we'll play it again. Let's just see how this sounds. Okay, so now we're on the C sharp. And I feel like that's leading me both back to a B and to an F sharp, but I almost feel like neither of those is where I want to go. And sometimes when you're doing something like this, you can just be like, okay, well, let's just kind of see what this feels like just by putting the chord in there and just playing it. And be like, okay, where do I want to end up? So going to the B absolutely works functionally. And sometimes I'll just try every possibility. So I got that diminished fifth in there again. Let's try going to the 3. That actually works pretty well. Going to that D chord is good. So going to the B chord works, but I don't know if I want to go back to the tonic at this point. So the D chord, so the 3 I like. Here's going to the 4. Don't care for the 4. I mean, and any of these could be made to work. This is one of those things that there's no right or wrong answer. And I'm only testing things out diatonically. This is a fairly diatonic piece. But I mean, you know, there's absolutely places where you could use any of the chords that are not in your scale. You could modify the chords that are in your scale. There's lots of ways to do this. Not liking the F sharp, even though the C sharp leads to the F sharp quite nicely. So now here, you know, this is where, you know, with the way I think about music theory, there's a strong relationship between the 3 and the 6. And there's a strong relationship between the 2 and the 7, strong relationship between the 3 and the 6, strong relationship between the 4 and the 5. So considering I didn't like the 4, I'm unsurprised that I didn't care for the 5. I didn't care for the 2. I will be unsurprised if I don't care for the 7. I really liked the 3, so I will also be unsurprised if I do like the 6. Now, another part of the question is, did I just prime my own brain to like this because it's the 6? I don't know. But I do like it. I like the 3 better, but I do like the 6. Let's try it out with the 7, and I suspect, and again, I may be prepping my own brain to do this, I suspect that I will not like this that much. And you know, I gotta say I was wrong. That one has a pretty good feel to it. But even though I like the feel of it, I think I would like the feel of this better in another rhythmic position where I was looking for a resolution back to 1. And 7 to 1, even in a minor scale, does tend to be a pretty strong resolution. So no surprise there at all. But I think I'm going to go with the 3 in this case. So we're looking for a D chord. So now we've at least established where we want to go. And it's just that easy. And I just hit save again. So it does take a moment to save this. In this case, I am putting this back down to the F sharp, so we're going to be a D major chord in this case. And I feel like that'll probably work. Actually, I might want to continue to roll with using my 1-3 dyads. Yeah, I do like that. And I think I'm going to go to a half note here. And you know, we talked about audiation earlier and the fact that, you know, you might hear where, you know, what chord or note you want to go to next. But audiation absolutely can apply to rhythmic devices very effectively. So it's like, you know, what rhythmic device do I want to use? And what I heard there was a half note. Oops. We want to delete the top note. And this is basically what I heard rhythmically. And I think this is what I heard sonically as well. That is not quite what I know. Okay, no, you know what? I got that part going to, oh, whoa. Stop playing. There we go. So I think this is what I heard, but I heard it at half of the speed that I put it in. So I think this should be here. No, you know, I'll bet. Let's see what that sounds like. No, I think what I heard actually was this would be an 8th. And then we get here. Okay. And then I think this should actually move down to the next note. I don't know how long that will be yet, but let's pull some. And a lot of times what I'll do with the bass is I'll just highlight usually just kind of the root note of whatever's going on, and then I'll modify from there. So for example, in a case like this, so these are all root notes now. There's just nothing crazy going on. And there's nothing wrong with the bass just following along on the root. That absolutely works. But if I wanted to drop this down, we could say, okay, well, only this one, because these red and pink notes, those are out of the range of the instrument. But I could put that on the 3, or I could put that on the 5, and this is where, your bass doesn't even have to follow exactly what the guitar is doing. Often it can, and often it does, and it works well. And that, yeah. Now, if I had a 5-string bass, these would all work, but you push that up to the 3, and these up to the 5, and then you've almost got kind of you got a bit of a contrapuntal thing going on between these two instruments. Not any kind of real strong counterpoint, but it's there. That I kind of like, and then I can pop this in and see what the guitar is actually doing. I think I'll probably move this up to be on the same strings, so then we have kind of that kind of a feel. And what I'm kind of thinking here is probably on my 5th measure, I will go back to the B note. And I don't want to just repeat these 4 measures, but if I think of this as an 8-measure phrase, I can think of like a kind of a sub-phrase as sitting in the first half. And so, bringing that back to the B note will kind of really reestablish our tonic, and halfway through could be a good place to do that. There's nothing wrong with doing it in other places. You can put this stuff, you can do this stuff in so many freaking crazy ways. It's awesome. But so now, we're kind of looking for, what do I want to do with this next measure? What's this feel going to be? So now where the B note, the B chord absolutely works there, definitely not what I'm looking for. I feel like the A might work a little better here. Let's get a bass note in here. See if we can get this to... Unfortunately, that chord is not... Sometimes... Oh, I hit the save button again. Sometimes Sibelius doesn't play the chords real well on guitars. Probably that's because of the guitar plugin I'm using is not super great for Sibelius, but it works. And so, it's kind of funny. Earlier, I went to the A chord somewhere back here, and I said, I feel like I like that A, but I would want that to be somewhere where it's leading back to the B. And I've already established that I want to lead back to the B chord in this measure. And so it totally makes sense that I'm digging the A chord here now. And I think what I want to do, I've got a rhythm in mind. So I think I'm going to go quarter note, 8th note, 2/16, 8th, 2/16. That's not quite right. What do I got here? Yeah, no, that's right. And then to a quarter note. Let's see if that rhythmic device is right. Yes. Okay, so I'm liking that, but I think here also I want to move this to the 5. This to the 4. And here I'm going to do a little bit of kind of rhythmic funkadelicness here, and just have the bass not quite match up exactly with where we're going. And to accentuate this, I'll want to have a little bit of movement in that bass. B, C sharp, D, E, F. Okay, yeah, so that's a 9. Let's see if that works. I think that might. I'm actually going to make this an 8th note. And now what I want to do over here is I want to force the 4 to be a 4. 4s are weird because if you play a 1 and a 4, the ear will invert it and will make it a 5 and a 1. So basically so here is a 1. So this is the 1. This is the 4. The ear will hear this as a 1 and this as a 5 without further context. It's true. Now we have established context. We've established a 3rd here and a 5th here. So we do have context already for if we hear this just in isolation, just this one thing, we're going to hear it the way I described, as that inverted 5. But even if I were to put the bass in right here, that bass isn't giving us any more information. So I want to a little more firmly establish that this is in fact a 4, and a good way to do that is to put in another note that forces this to be a 1. And the best notes to do that with are 3, 5, and 7. So what I think I actually want to try here is put a 3 here, a 7 here. This should be a B note. Let's see if that works. I think that does work. I think I kind of like that. And now I'll definitely want to modify this because I want these to be here. And that will make this much more reasonable to play. I mean, you could play it the way it was just shown, but sometimes jumping from your fretted string straight to an open string may not be the right sound. And it's, you know, as much distortion as there is on the guitars that will be played on this song, it probably won't be terribly noticeable. This is definitely friendlier to play for the hand. The other way would not be hard. But one of the things that you got to look at is this chord cannot be played with the open string because it's the this 4th fret here can't be put to another string reasonably and have this workable. I mean, I could really rearrange it and establish it this way, so I would be playing the 9th fret here, but it's not going to work as well. So this, in my opinion, is the best way to do this. I'm going to save this file here. coming up on, we're definitely into my longer stream now, 3 hours and 45 minutes, 3 3/4 hours. So that's kind of fun, exciting. And I think I am just going to let it go until it cuts out. And let's see what happens with my first 4-hour stream. I'm kind of curious about what will happen when I reach the 4-hour limit. And I also need to contact Todd from LiveSpace because I've noticed a couple of things that I'm unsure about in the LiveSpace chat and how that's working. So I'm not sure if he'll want to take a look at those things. But normally it shows the video basically, and right, the video has shut off. It shows me as live, but the video is no longer showing in that. I'm looking way up here because I have actually 4 monitors. So my main monitor right in front of me. I got 2 monitors, one off to the right and left, and then one up. So I've got chat in an upper monitor, chat in my right monitor, my broadcast software over here on my left monitor, and then my sheet music is in my primary monitor. That's my biggest one. So that's what's going on with that kind of wackiness. Now, there's another thing that happens for me mentally when I'm doing something. So I'm kind of liking this long drawn out chord right here. I think this kind of works. Let's listen to that in context. So that works, and I even feel like this might work well if I were to go for a measure and a half or 2 measures. So the intellectual thing that happens now is I feel like I'm being lazy. And so there's a part of me that wants to be like, no, I need to put more notes than that in. And that can be a very dangerous place to be. And I'm a big fan of the Sherlock Holmes books. I think that the Benedict Cumberbatch show Sherlock, he is the best Sherlock ever. I like the old Basil Rathbone from I think the 60s or 70s. He did a great job of the Sherlock character, but man, Benedict is so good in that role. But there's a story in the original Sherlock Holmes series. I've read all 9 books probably 10 or 12 times. They're just great. But there's this one story where he's trying to figure out who this arson is, who set this fire. And at one point, one of the standard police officers says, "Hey, did you see this?" and shows him a thumbprint on the wall. And Sherlock says, "No, I didn't." And it turns out that Sherlock knew from this that thumbprint was new because he had examined the area. The reason he hadn't seen it before is because it wasn't there, which means he knew that the thumbprint had been placed after the crime had been committed. It was a false signal put there by the criminal. And so then from that, he was able to solve the case. And what he said in that was that this person had forgot what the most important part of being an artist is, which is knowing when to stop. And that can be a tough one. With the drawings I've done, there have been many cases where I'm like, I feel like I need to keep drawing, but I also feel like this drawing is done. And so this is one of these places where you're like, okay, do I have like some intellectual vanity going here that tells me I'm not putting enough notes in? Or am I being lazy? Not always an easy question to answer, I'd say even especially for yourself. And so, sometimes you might got to listen to this a couple times and be like, all right, let's see what we got. I think 2 measures is too much. In fact, I think I need to pull the tie out. Yep, and I think a full measure on that one is good. Got to wait for this save function to stop. There we go. Where are we at here? 3 hours 50. I need to pull this page up and just kind of watch what it does. Ooh. Okay, so 351.20. So I'm gonna watch this to see what happens with the, because this it should actually cut off for me prior to, it's a little delayed on different websites. So it looks like LiveSpace is about a minute behind. YouTube is, I'm not sure. It's a little behind. Anyway, let's keep this thing rolling here. So I like this, but I also think that maybe taking this up to the 5th, that's the 4th, go to the 5th. Let's take that to the 5th, take it down an octave, wait for it to finish saving. Okay, that might work a little better. You know what? That does not work. Oh, wait, what do I got here? I'm on an A, C, E. That's the 5th. A, C sharp, E. So that's, no, I'm not digging the 5th on that one at all. Let's just take that right back to an A and just leave it real basic and simple. That works a little better. I feel like I need something on the 4. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 and 1, 2, 3. And I'm trying to decide if I need something on the 4 of that measure. I think I do need something on that measure, on the 4 of that measure. Oh, I had the wrong mode there. So we'll do a dotted quarter again, but I don't think I want to do 16ths again like this. I just want to get these notes in place. I think I should do a quarter note here. And so that's an F sharp. Okay, that should work for guitar. Yep, that I can do. And that's something, when you are writing for any instrument, you really need to understand what the capacities and limitations of a given instrument actually are. For example, on a guitar, if I were to take this down one more position, then that chord is no longer possible on a guitar, because these two notes can only be played on the same string, and if the two notes are on the same string, they cannot be played simultaneously. Here is the lowest place I could do this particular minor chord shape. If it were a major chord shape, I could go 1 fret lower. That, going to the G major there really works for me. And so that would be the 6th chord of the B minor. That's kind of cool. All right. So we got that. Yeah, I want to hear a little more context on this one, because that G chord is suddenly just happening for me. In fact, what I think I'm going to do here, I'm going to kind of fill out this last bit of, because I basically want to get to this measure. Am I looking at this correctly? I think that's my 8 measures. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, okay, that's the end of my 8 measures. So that'll be the end of phrase 1. Then I'm going to do another 8 measure phrase. Then I'll repeat both of those phrases for my 32 measure bit in the A section. And I think what I want to do here, let's embigorize this again. Let's get some bass notes in place. Boom. And do I want to modify any? What if I took this to the 3? So I take that to the 3, then I could just have a whole note here. Take that to a 3. Yeah, I think that's what I'm gonna do. And then I'm gonna take, once it stops saving, I'm gonna leave this right on that G major chord. I'm just gonna go to 8th notes throughout that, and that's gonna kind of rhythmically give a little anticipation for what's coming up. I'm actually gonna tie this so that we come in on the syncopation again. Yeah. And then what I like to do is just put this in parentheses to indicate that it's a tied to note. And this is a feel I really like. Coming in on the end of 1 on something like this, I think is a really good rhythmic concept. Oh, I gotta wait for it to stop saving and then it'll play. How are we doing on? So we got about 2.5 minutes until this thing should cut off. I don't know how that's gonna work. Yeah, that is, and so yeah, you know, it's interesting. Is something like this. I got this 8 measure thing going, and I started it out with this fairly upbeat kind of driving thing with the 16th notes in the guitar. And then I get to this portion where it's just more drawn out. And I feel like that's working. I think I'm pretty happy with this overall device so far. And so really, I don't have a lot left on this particular song to do because this A section will take up a fair whack of space in this. So basically, on this here, the A section is this whole area. So I do 8 more measures, and then that'll take care of all of that. Oops. And then the A section will be repeated right here, and then I've just got to write this B section, which looks like it's also another 32 measures. And I don't know, maybe I'll do a 16 measure thing for that. Maybe I'll do 8 measure. I don't know. I'll have to wait until I get there and see what goes down with that whole crazy kind of thing. We got just over a minute here before we cut off. So again, you know what? Wherever you're at out there, thank you very much for coming in. This is my all-time longest stream. I've had a really good time doing it. As I said earlier, if I have missed anyone's chat messages, that is not intentional. I really do enjoy chatting with viewers and answering questions, all of that kind of stuff. This has been very fun for me. It's always a good time for me just to sit and compose. And anytime I get to geek out and talk about music theory like that, that's always awesome. I think we got about 30 seconds left here. I am the Mad Poet. You are an audience. We are the Mad Poet Society. This is part of what we do. Tomorrow I'm going to be back playing just a normal concert style show. Don't know which album or albums I'll be playing. Probably 2 albums, which is kind of my normal thing these days. Don't know what they are yet. Don't know what it's going to be like. Well, I know it's going to be a bunch of flashing lights and loud music. Well, it's loud for me. Whether or not it's loud for you is up in the air. Let's see if we get cut off here in about 3 seconds. I think it's likely we will. Are we still on? Are we still? I don't know if we're still on or not. I'm kind of curious now. I'm actually going to pull up. This is total experimental stuff for me here. I'm going to pull up Twitch and just see if this runs up already. I might